Well, so I kind of called this yesterday, I believe. So when Iran stole this ship, right? Supposedly stole this ship. What's up, shot redneck? As soon as the news broke, I was like, okay, yeah, right. They stole it. Okay. More like left there for them. So then I do not really care for this guy too much that I'm gonna play. His attitude is just kind of weird to me. But anyways, y'all listen to this shit. What's up, Den? Josh, what's happening, Bubba? Welcome y'all. All right, cool.
38 miles north of Fujairah. Honey, did you leave the dryer on? Oh, also, did you leave the floating armory unattended? Seriously? Who was watching this floating armory that allowed Iran to just come in and scoop it up? Reports are saying the IRGC boarded a Honduras-flagged vessel called the Hui Chan, a Chinese-operated ship, and dragged it toward Iranian territorial waters. Oh, weird. There was just a floating armory there, happened to be linked to China. China's not giving them weapons. It was stolen.
Listen, this makes Trump look like a fool, in my opinion, right? He's over there talking about, oh, we're going to have deals, and we agree on Iran. Okay, sure y'all do.
It was a stolen armory. China had no idea that Iran was going to go scoop this thing up. Seems a little bit suspect, doesn't it? But here's what makes this specific seizure different from every other seizure in the war. The Hui Chan wasn't carrying oil, wasn't carrying passengers, wasn't carrying cargo, wasn't carrying any products from Temu, as China, we know, loves to drop off Temu products in Iran. It was a floating armory, a weapon storage vessel operated by a private maritime security firm stocked with guns that commercial ships transiting the strait used to defend themselves from piracy. And it literally brought the pirates in and let them take it. Yeah, there's a lot of suspect things going on here. And they did it, here's the interesting part, during the Trump-Xi summit while the American president and the Chinese president were sitting across the table in Beijing, agreeing that the Strait of Hormuz
They did it well. He couldn't do a damn thing about it. And
must remain open, and Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. Meanwhile,
so
it
let
looks
me
like
ask y'all
China's
this.
like, yeah,
right? This
we
is
can't
the question I got, right? We got a blockade on the Straits of Iran. Did they just let this boat be pulled back? And how in the fuck did they get it to them? I'm just curious of that.
give them weapons outright, but let's put a floating armory packed with weapons. Who knows what was on that thing? And let's just have it be stolen. Oh, whoopsie. Yeah, we didn't give them weapons, but the IRGC was caught boarding that ship 38 miles off the coast of UAE. United Arab Emirates, that's way over across the Persian Gulf from Iran itself. This doesn't seem like a coincidence.
How were they allowed? I mean, how did the Navy allow them to even get that thing up in there? Hey, Miss Gina. I thought we were watching all this shit.
To me, it seems like this war has now stepped up in how Iran might be getting their weapons. So today we're going to cover a few things. First, the full picture on what's happened in the last 12 to 18 hours, because there's a lot. Second, what Iran is actually saying publicly, why the rhetoric coming out of Tehran is some of the most aggressive language of this entire war right now. And then third, what the mainstream media is not covering the U.S. military, what they've already done to Iran's so-called pirate navy, and what's in the theater right now, preparing to maybe take down Iran's mini navy, the Mosquito fleet, that's been harassing and doing things just like this.
I was gonna say, smart mouth. That just didn't sound right to me. You know what I mean? Because we supposedly have a blockade.
This weapons cache. And then remember,
at.
we're going to do the roundup section as well, about 3/4 of the way through the video. Latest breaking news from around the globe that you need to know. You guys love this section for the last few videos, so we're going to keep it going. But first, Iran seizing a floating armory during a superpower summit with the U.S. and China meeting. And then Admiral Brad Cooper, the CENTCOM commander, was interviewed by Congress, and he told them under oath exactly what the U.S. military has done and is prepared to do about events just like this. So whoever was the ship captain of that floating armory, can we talk to that guy? Can we ask him what he was up to? He's like, oh yeah, I was just in the restroom for 45 minutes. Next thing I know, we're boarded by the IRGC and now we're on our way to Iran. Weird. I had no idea that was going to happen. But let's build the full picture here and talk about what's actually happened in the past 24 or so hours and how these latest breaking events could change this entire conflict. So it looks like Trump and Xi Jinping have made an agreement publicly that both sides will agree that the Strait of Hormuz must remain open to support the free flow of energy to the world. They also both agreed publicly that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. So that's a win. Looks like a little bit of solidarity there. And then President Trump told Fox News that President Xi personally told him China would not provide military equipment to Iran.
And they just provided it to him.
Called that a big statement. But weird, a Chinese-linked vessel that happened to be stolen. Oh, we had no idea it would be stolen. This seems like some of the things that China might be up to behind the scenes. Oh, China's like, oh, the F-35? No, we didn't steal the F-35. It just happened that we made a J-35 that looks exactly like the F-35. We had no clue the U.S. was even building the F-35. These are the kind of things that China does behind the scenes to be a little bit sneaky. Basically, the butler on Mr. Deeds is even impressed by China's move at this point.
Adore Hawaiian punch.
Wow. You kind of just snuck up on me there, man.
I fear you're underestimating the sneakiness, sir.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio was very direct. He said that we will never support an Iranian tolling system in the Strait, nor do we think they have a right to put mines in international waters. That seems pretty obvious. He added, and this part matters, we're not asking for China's help. We don't need their help. That is the U.S. telling Beijing, we appreciate the alignment. We don't need you to carry us. It's a different message than what you usually hear from a State Department briefing, but it does show that the U.S. is keeping its enemies close and it's keeping China closer. But the ink wasn't even dry on the Trump-Xi readout when the IRGC moved in on this weapons cache. A ship anchored 38 miles northeast of Fujairah, the UAE's primary oil export terminal. UAE is one of the main allies of the U.S. in the Persian Gulf. It was boarded by unauthorized personnel and taken towards Iranian waters. I wonder who that was. Meanwhile, General Salami is like sitting in the background while they're stealing the boat. He's like, I got to disguise myself. I'm no longer General Salami. I am now Colonel Mustard. Everyone on the ship call me Colonel Mustard. But the UK Maritime Trade Operations Center confirmed that the ship was a Honduras-flagged Huchuan, a Chinese-operated vessel functioning as a floating armory for weapons and munitions and defensive gear for commercial ships. Who knows what could have been on that thing? Advanced electro-optical seekers for surface-to-air missiles or manpads. Anyone? Would China do that? Would they put any weapons on a ship that could be used to shoot down U.S. fighters? No, I'm sure China would never do that. Absolutely not. And then a second vessel near Oman was also attacked and reportedly sank recently. Iran doubled down publicly with a senior official reiterating Iran's claim of sovereignty over the strait and asserting Iran's right to seize oil tankers connected to the United States. So as we can see, Iran is not nothing. Their mosquito fleet and their mini navy can be a real pain in the you-know-what. And then remember, there's a ceasefire that's a ceasefire is the best way I would put it, brokered on April 8th by Pakistan, who's also housing Iranian aircraft, Iranian spy aircraft in Pakistan. Yeah, Pakistan, thanks so much for holding these different mediations. But at this point, it's pretty clear that Pakistan might be a wee bit compromised. But the Trump administration said that the ceasefire is on massive life support earlier this week. And Trump called Iran's latest counteroffer that was relayed through Pakistan totally unacceptable and stupid. Obviously, Iran is going to try to tap along the world as long as they can here. Now, everyone is growing impatient with the continued closure of the Strait of Hormuz, but Iran's got that IRGC Navy, and it looks like there's hundreds, if not up to 1,000 of those Mosquito attack boats. And those Mosquito boats are likely the ones that went in and took this weapons cache. But it looks like there was no fighting. And you got to think, if it's a weapons cache boat, there's going to be a security team, a lot of security teams on there. So was that security team told to strategically take a little restroom break? Hey guys, you guys have been working hard protecting these thousands of weapons on this weapons cache. Why don't you go on a little...
As soon as I heard that they took a weapons boat, I kind of fucking thought that ship was a setup.
Sea tour, go look at the coast of UAE and enjoy yourself. Maybe swing in, do some indoor skiing. They've got indoor skiing. You guys want to do that for a couple hours? Don't worry, I'll watch the ship. We'll all be fine. This is just so weird that this boat was taken and there wasn't a security team there. There should be a massive security team there. There should be Navy SEAL level security on a ship like this because of what it could be used for. So now Iran just basically got a frigate actually bigger than that, an oil tanker-sized boat full of weapons. Who knows what's on that thing? We'll get into that here in a second, but now the U.S. is going to have to fight against that. But luckily, the U.S. is ready, and we saw that recently with General Cooper's interview to Congress. But now, more weapons on the battlefield as the U.S. seeks these high-stakes negotiation to try to get Iran to come to the table. 440 kilograms of uranium that's supposedly already enriched to 60%. That's dangerously close to weapons grade.
That's like Trump said they didn't have the equipment over there to get it out of the ground. I do not believe that as far as I can fucking throw him.
That's kind of the big domino here that's on the table. That's the big 4D chess question, if you will. You guys know I love saying that, and that section's coming up soon. But the whole goal here would be to get Iran to the table for a 15 or so year moratorium on that uranium. They're saying they want to do a 5-year moratorium. So basically just trying to kick the can down the road so they can get a nuclear weapon to protect the Strait of Hormuz. But here's an interesting thing. The Iranian regime came out, the IRGC came out and said, oh, the Strait of Hormuz is our nuclear weapon. So they see that as their number one domino. They're focusing on it. They're putting all their different IRGC Navy fast attack boats. That's their focus. Put all their resources into that. And if they can cripple the world's economy and make everyone go down with the ship, that's what they would love to do. However, the U.S. military has a little something to say about that. Iran's like that bad ex. They're like, yeah, we'll basically come to the table and do everything you want. And then they come to the table and they're like, yeah, we're not going to do any of that. Sorry, we were just gaslighting you the whole time and we're surprised you believed it. But now that we know Iran's rhetoric is up to level 11, let's cover a few of their quotes and then we'll get into what the U.S. military would do to crush Iran's mini navy. Sun Tzu said, know your enemy, know yourself, and you need not fear the result of 100 battles. So let's actually know this enemy, not the cartoon version that they put out, but the real one. Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, who is also their chief negotiator in the nuclear talks, even though he basically just got his rights read to him by the IRGC, telling him that he's now the puppet of the IRGC. He posted this on social media. Our armed forces are prepared to deliver a lesson-giving response to any aggression. Of course, he's going to say that. And then the other big statement was what we talked about a second ago with Iran calling the Strait of Hormuz their nuclear weapon. Obviously, that's their focus. They know if they can pressure the world long enough and not get a coalition to come together to open the Strait of Hormuz, then at that point, they might actually get the U.S. to leave. That's their whole goal. That's what they want the U.S. to do. They want the U.S. to leave. They don't want to come to an agreement, and they want to keep extorting the world with the Strait of Hormuz. But now that we know the enemy, we know they've got those fast attack craft. They've got 12.7 millimeter heavy machine guns on their fast attack boats. They've also got those anti-ship cruise missiles that they can supposedly attach to those fast attack craft. Likely some of the larger fast attack craft could have that, but they're also hiding those anti-ship missiles along the coast. Don't worry, enter the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Navy along with the U.S. Army AH-64 Apaches. But at this point, one of the main aircraft that would be taking down these fast attack craft is the A-10 Warthog. We've covered it a lot on this channel. This thing has gotten new life. It used to be called the Tank Buster. Now it is lovingly being called the Boat Buster. And the reason why is because it has high explosive incendiary rounds or even depleted uranium rounds. I mean, these are 20 millimeter bullets from an F-15E. Think about a 30 millimeter bullet for the A-10. Sorry, little buddy, you feeling a little insecure with me talking about a 30 millimeter? Don't worry, no, you're really capable, you're really awesome. And trust me, these things are awesome. I fired them in combat and they basically have little mini exploding tips when they're in a high explosive incendiary mode when that round is put on these things. But you just can't really compete with the A-10 Warthog. I mean, the 30 millimeter gun on that thing, that is the crowd pleaser that pretty much everyone wants to see going up against these fast attack craft, and they're ready. Dozens of A-10s in the region. To me, that's the number one tactic to go up against an enemy that goes low tech. Oh, okay, cool. You're going to send pilots to go seize a weapons cache. Well, take a weapons cache that might have been strategically, hey, don't steal our boat. China's like, do not steal that weapons cache. Here are the coordinates to the weapons cache. The weapons cache coordinates we just sent to you on Signal. Enjoy that. And now we're going to go ahead and take a smoke break out back. Oh, weird. Someone stole our weapons cache. But this is the
Apple
ultimate
AirTag,
jet, the A-10 Warthog. I mean, even if it was up there, seeing this pirate mini Navy take that, they could have rolled in and strafed it. But it looks like this was some sort of a clandestine operation behind the scenes, basically sneaking in and taking that Chinese vessel without China having any idea. China's just hanging out. China's just that guy that's like, oh, weird, our weapons cache? Oh man, never saw that coming. Yeah, we're just like a guitarist. We just like live in our mom's basement and just hang out. Oh, we had a weapons cache? We had no idea that happened. Yeah, yeah, China, we see you. But the A-10 Warthog, that is the #1 platform in my opinion. When the enemy goes low tech, okay, cool. You wanna go low tech? Cool, we'll go low tech as well. The A-10 Warthog boat buster is likely the one that will be leading the charge, along with another platform that we haven't talked about too much, and that is the AC-130J. That is a gunship that has basically a mini howitzer on it. Sorry, so 20 millimeter, 30 millimeter, feeling a little insecure? Well, yeah, that's because the AC-130J has a mini howitzer on it. Good luck competing with that. But I'll be doing a full video on the AC-130J likely tomorrow, so tune in for that. But before we go any further, I want to bring you into the section that some of you have been waiting for, and that is the roundup section. And here we go. These are the stories around the globe that you need to know. So Russia is hammering Kyiv the same day that Trump met with Xi. So on that same day, Russia launched a massive drone missile attack on Ukraine's capital, killing 1 person and injuring 31, with damage reports across 6 districts. And the Council of Europe simultaneously finalized a special tribunal for the crime of aggression against Ukraine. So we'll see if that goes anywhere, but obviously Russian leadership is ramping up these attacks right now instead of letting them layer down. So it looks like they're just trying to get a better bargaining position. Next story, U.S. Coast Guard has burned 3 narco subs off the coast of Colombia. The U.S. Coast Guard Tahoma, operating with Southcom and the Joint Interagency Task Force, interdicted 3 suspected narco trafficking vessels off the Colombian coast when the vessels failed to comply with stop orders. A helicopter crew, and this is just awesome, used precision sniper fire to disable their engines. All 9 suspects were rescued and arrested. Authorities seized 6,000 pounds of cocaine, street value of roughly $45 million. I think we should just give that money to the Coast Guard for doing these awesome, insane, highly risky operations. I mean, well done, Coast Guard. That's just awesome. And that leads us to the 4D chess strategic analysis section. So what does Iran actually want from getting that floating armory? Well, they're potentially getting low on weapons. I mean, their economy is in complete disarray. They've lost $500 million a day. So they probably are getting low on their stockpiles. They needed more weapons. So whoever got that to them, some behind the scenes, weird, an entire armory seized by the IRGC, potentially filling gaps in the IRGC proxy army, getting them the weapons they need. And those are probably small arms like AK-47s, shoulder-fired weapons like RPGs, potentially even mines. We don't know what kind of mines could have been on that ship as well. So it looks like there could be some big powers out there that look to see a strategic win in keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed for now and keeping Iran's mini proxy navy, mosquito navy, kind of like mini navy. That's kind of fun to say. So it looks like potentially China might have an interest in keeping disarray and chaos in the Strait of Hormuz for now. The leverage might not quite be there for China to see the U.S. having more control over the strait being in their interest, because obviously if they're to try to take Taiwan, they're going to need that flow of oil from the Strait of Hormuz to come from Iran and not be controlled by the United States. What do you think happens from here? Would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. I read all the comments and I try to respond to all the ones within 2 hours of posting the video. So throw your comments below and then go ahead and follow me on X, follow me on Instagram. I'm posting there pretty much every day. Click the link in the description, join the Max Ready Room for access to members only videos. And then I'll see you guys on this next video that pops up right here. So click this next video. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner. signing off. So Iran trying to bring the US to the table with no terms that actually the US wants, it's like the perfect multi-level marketing scheme. Iran's like, hey, so I reached out because I think you'd be a perfect fit for what we're building here. The Strait of Hormuz sovereignty opportunity is not just a waterway, it's a movement. Become a part of a movement. And I truly believe that if you just pay the enrollment fee, roughly $270 billion in war reparations, and you agree to a few terms where we own everything in Iran, including all the uranium, and you acknowledge that we own the actual Strait of Hormuz itself, you'll be positioned on the ground floor. Completely new global security architecture. And then you can just become rich. And then we will just kind of be behind the scenes. We won't really be making any money here. This is like the perfect multi-level marketing. Literally, this is in every playbook of every multi-level marketing scheme.
He really is. He's hard to listen to. I'm kind of glad that's over, really. I don't know. Man, that bothers me, man. I mean, where do we fucking go from here? You know what I mean? Yeah, it still ain't as bad as Carl, no doubt. But where the fuck do we go from here? Let's just look and see if they...
Are you trying to feed your dog better, but...
Stop this shit right here. Let me cruise around on X for a second. I just wonder if they posted anything. What's up, Shaky P? Let me see what's today's shit is. Oh, I guess I can share your screen where y'all see. You can at least see what the fuck I'm looking at, huh? I guess they were fangirling over fucking Elon in China. Which, why wouldn't they, right? Let's see what Marco's talking about.
Hey, man. Yeah, so I am. What I'm really interested to ask you is something that Buckley Carlson, we were just talking about him, Tucker Carlson's brother. We were talking about
what's up,
the powers that influence Trump behind the scenes. And we went deep into that conversation, which really fascinated me. And I just realized I'm not giving it enough attention. So then that kind of clicked in my mind as we're speaking about Tucker as something I want to ask you. But before that, I want to get your thoughts on the meeting with Xi and the developments since we last spoke. Where are things heading? Me and you have said that the best path, the least worst path or least bad path for Trump is to just walk away. Surprisingly, one of the people supporting our position is the gentleman, I keep forgetting his name, the guy that wrote in The Atlantic, the face of the neocons. Kagan. Kagan said it himself.
How do you just walk away?
I know he doesn't like Trump, but for Kagan to say it, I think that's got the blessing of the neocons to just walk away. But let's start with maybe the meeting with Xi and then the state of affairs now, where we stand today. What's your position?
You know, I'm not sure about all the details with the meeting with Xi. One of the big takeaways I got out of that was President Trump and the White House really enthusiastically putting out that, you know, China agrees that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, almost like a soft endorsement. And I don't know if the Chinese specifically came out and said this. The White House,
they didn't. I checked. They didn't say it. They didn't say it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just like, hey, these guys agree. This other major world power agrees that we should be in this war under the premise that President Trump said we're in this war. It just seemed like we're grasping at straws. But then also, if you look at how the Chinese fight, they don't fight kinetically. The Chinese would love nothing more than to see us deeply distracted and militarily committed in the Middle East, as opposed to the Pacific. I'm against us getting into any kind of conflict in the Pacific with the Chinese, obviously. But for China to continue to rise and establish themselves as a dominant power in the world, having us bogged down in the Middle East is actually in their best interest. So to watch China kind of sit back and let us paint ourselves into this corner, I think was typical Chinese. It was very smart of them. I just don't know if we read it the right way.
Do you trust China?
I don't, but I feel like China actually, I don't really trust any foreign country. I trust them to pursue their interests.
It's your job not to trust them.
Right, exactly. And I wouldn't expect them to trust me. But with China, I feel like it's very complicated, but at the same time, it's also very simple. They are a production and a manufacturing superpower, but in order for them to sell their goods, they need American consumers. So this idea that we are headed towards
I'm gonna try my
Thucydides
best
trap,
not
where
to
like
buy
two rising
anything
powers or the
fucking
rising
Chinese.
power and the superpower inevitably must clash. I don't necessarily agree with that. And I don't think the Chinese do either. I know we have some China hawks and some ultra hawks in America who feel that way. And for a long time, that's kind of been a MAGA talking point. But I do think there's a world that exists where us and China can, complement each other. I don't like the fact that we've hollowed out our manufacturing base here in America and sent it overseas to China. That's had a very negative effect on America and American workers. But for China to, basically kind of egg us on in this, what we're doing in the Middle East, I think that's just smart business on the part of China. If I put myself in their shoes, I would want us militarily bogged down there. That's going to give China more free reign in the Pacific to do what they need to do, and then also hurt the American economy and let China come in. And my fear with China has always been that they will start to slowly chip away at our status as a world's reserve currency holder. And what's already taking place with the petrodollar. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. So we always get people who are like, no, the petrodollar's fine. America's we're still the prime reserve currency holder, but the way that China is maneuvering themselves to be a more steady force that isn't going to sanction other countries, that is going to be a stabilizing force that you can always kind of do pragmatic trade with, that worries me. So basically, our policies worry me far more than anything that China's doing.
I had a guy on the show yesterday, a journalist that the team brought to my attention. His name was, I think, Sam Cooper, if I'm not mistaken. And he's been studying for 15 years. He's testified in Congress in Canada. He's based in Canada about it. I think it's Sam Cooper. I'm trying to find his name. But he's been looking into the fentanyl crisis in the US and the precursors being shipped from China. He's like, Mario, there's a connection there. And it goes all the way back. It's linked directly to the CCP and goes within China's CCP, China's Communist Party. And then I started, kind of pressing him on this. And he seemed like a genuine journalist speaking the truth, just a typical journalist doing journalism without any agenda. And he said, Mario, I genuinely think it's not only about money and it's CCP policy. Not sure if it goes as high as Xi, the president, but CCP policy to weaken the US through the fentanyl crisis. And I know that was talked about a lot just a few months ago. Is there truth to that? Do you know anything about it at all?
Oh, certainly. There's definitely truth there. I mean, the precursors, the ingredients for the fentanyl, a lot of it is not regulated tightly inside China. And so a lot of the precursors are coming to Mexico and then into America, Canada too, to a lesser extent, India as well. Some precursors are shipped from India. The problem that we have with like proving that in like a smoking gun fashion that would like hold up in a court of law is that the fentanyl producers are able to switch the ingredients and the compounds so frequently that which precursor is actually being used for nefarious fentanyl production versus what's being used for legal commerce for chemical compounds in household chemicals, et cetera, or like fertilizer. That's really, really hard to prove. But I do believe that the Chinese in the long game that they're playing, they do want a weakened America again, because it's hard to build back our manufacturing if you have a large production or a large portion of our population addicted to fentanyl, and you have a lot of these towns that were hollowed out by the manufacturing being sent overseas that are now being destroyed by the opioid crisis and now the fentanyl crisis. So I do think that's a long game they play. We have to have our eyes open about what China is doing. So, but this is another place where I think if we were to go to the Chinese, directly and probably more aggressively and use tariffs. And President Trump has started to do some of this. I think we could some of the precursor issues handled. A lot of those precursors, then the demand for them will go to India or to other markets. And this is a problem that we just have in general with drugs, but especially with something like fentanyl. It's so easy and so cheap to make. They're able to get basically the same effect by switching out some of the different ingredients. And so like it's not like there's just like 3 or 4 different precursors. They can play around with this quite a bit. And so the biggest issue that we have, unfortunately, and this is the problem with the whole war on drugs, is that there is still a massive demand, a massive appetite inside America for the drugs. So unfortunately, like we can take out precursors, we can take them off the market, we can, kill members of the cartel. And I support that. If there's members of the cartel that are sending fentanyl into America to kill Americans, I fully support President Trump's action of declaring them as terrorists and taking them off the battlefield. However, at the end of the day, we have to be honest with ourselves and say, like, America has a health crisis where we just have this massive demand for drugs.
I see also those videos. I'll see if I'll send one to the producer now. I remember seeing one, and I didn't think it was real. Just those people walking around on the streets like zombies.
Yeah.
That's insane. Like, I travel a lot. I'm not sure if you travel. Do you travel a lot as well to, like, when you worked at the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center?
Yeah.
I'm sure you have. Yeah. You don't see those in many first world countries. Like, I'm in the Gulf, I don't see it. I'm originally from Australia. You don't see it close to that level. And you don't see it in China. I've been to China many times. That was years ago. And you didn't see it back then. It is so sad. That's what really bothers me more when I see things like the Iran war. There's so many issues domestically, as Buck Carlson we were talking about earlier. There's just so many domestic issues that are solvable, need a lot of attention, but that are solvable. And instead, we're there. Everyone's talking about the Iran war, Iran not having nuclear weapons, how to get out of the Iran war, and a $1.5 trillion defense budget, from what I understand. Like, far out, man. It's so annoying.
I mean, if the president would have said before the Iran war started that we were going to start stepping up our strikes on the fentanyl producers in Mexico, we are going to deploy troops along the border, we are going to get more aggressive in the Pacific, going after the fentanyl lines of production, and then we are going to leverage harsh tariffs and be more, aggressive towards China. I think a lot of people in America would have been like, okay, that actually makes sense, because most people in America can go to their major city in their state, and they will see the fentanyl zombies everywhere. I mean, fentanyl has killed over 100,000 Americans pretty much every year, especially during the Biden administration when the border was wide open. So people have been deeply touched by this pretty much throughout the entire country. So I think the American people would have understood that. Whereas the Iran war, we're literally back to, arguing about levels of uranium enrichment, and does a country in the Middle East have WMD? And, it's just really hard to explain to people how that is a vital national security interest, where the vast majority of our time, money, and resources should be spent right now when we have problems literally on our own streets.
Yeah, I'm a non-interventionist, but there's some interventions that would make sense, and something right at your border where you can directly see the impact. Like, you can see the direct impact of the Iran war, but it's higher gas prices. That's about it. But if there's a crackdown on the drug trade coming out of Mexico and South America, you can see the direct impact in your streets eventually. So there's a difference there. And this is why I agree with you. I think that meeting there's the statement that came out of the White House. And in that statement, they said, Iran can't have nuclear weapons. Iran will put out that statement. So it's like a revelation. Iran agrees with it. Yes. So, but they also said that China agrees that no one should charge a fee at toll at the Strait of Hormuz. Number one. And number two, they said they'll buy more American oil to diversify from the region. Now, that came out of the White House, and China itself did not say it. But I'm in the camp that this is more rhetoric in support of Trump, especially for his next 3 years, so he can get a political win. But when it comes to on-the-ground changes, China had the opportunity to play a role in ending the war in Ukraine by not supporting Russia as much. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying they had that chance. And they had the chance to, I want to say, avoid the war in Iran, but to kind of break the deadlock that's happening right now. But you make a very valid point. There's nothing better for China to do. They don't need anything to continue seeing the US empire crumble. Now, I'm using a pretty extreme word by saying crumble, but I think just people need to wake up to what's really happening. It's like the country's eating itself up, and China doesn't need to do much. But that worries me then. If that's the case, then what is the outcome in your view when it comes to Iran right now? Do you still think that Trump is more likely to walk away? Or are these, because that sounds like the most pragmatic option. But what I realized earlier today in a conversation, Joe, the most pragmatic option was also not to get into this war in the first place, and that didn't happen. So how do I know the most pragmatic option will happen now?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think what you and Buckley Carlson discussed yesterday is so important. Like, what are we doing and why are we doing it? Because if you listen to the president's public rhetoric over the last, 2 weeks or so, it's pretty evident that he doesn't want to be in this war. I mean, he won't come out and say it because he wants to maintain that position of strength. But if the president saw that there was a military way to end this war, the bombs would be dropping right now. We would be applying that military pressure. If he could get the Iranians to agree, I think, to pretty much anything that roughly fit into some of the demands that we've sent them, we'd have a signed deal right now and we'd have a victory parade. But basically, the Iranians have said, we don't trust you. We believe that we are winning. We're not going to make concessions at the diplomatic negotiating table that you guys couldn't earn on the battlefield. The Iranians are playing the long game as well. They know that they don't need much to keep the war going and to keep the Straits of Hormuz basically under their control. And the president, luckily no one got killed when we went in to go get those pilots, but the president got a taste of just how challenging boots on the ground would be. But for some reason, we're still just simply not leaving. So I'm hoping that he kind of snaps out of it and he says, like, I just got to make a decision. I can't stay in this halfway state, because my fear is the longer we stay in this halfway state where Iran has a blockade, we have a blockade, we're saying the ceasefire is holding, but every now and again, there's an exchange of fire. My fear is that the Iranians, especially now that they've been much more emboldened and the hardliners are much more emboldened, they're going to do a more aggressive strike against one of our ships or against one of our bases again. And then we're going to take casualties. And then we can't leave because we can't leave under fire. Then we do have to retaliate. We do have to hit them back. And then we're in this escalation cycle. Yeah. And that's how you end up stuck in these endless wars. So I am hoping he snaps out of it. But the big question is, like, why is he not just doing that? The crazy thing is, basically every time the president comes up with a winning strategy, President Trump, every time he comes up with a winning strategy for Iran, it's basically the rug is ripped out from underneath him. And I say this because in his first administration, there was a lot of pressure for him to go to war. There was a drone that was shot down. John Bolton, the national security advisor at the time, and a lot of the other hawks were saying, okay, now we need to strike the Iranians. We need to strike them back. President Trump called off the strike because they shot down one of our unmanned drones, and the strike would have killed a bunch of Iranians, escalating the war. He backed that off until one of our service members was killed, and then he killed Qasem Soleimani and Abdulmani Mohandas, and then he backed off the war once again. And he said, basically, our strategy is going to be apply max pressure sanctions so the regime weakens internally. We're not going to provoke a greater conflict because that would be disastrous. But if any of their proxies or any of their Quds Force officers kill any of our troops, we will do surgical strikes against them. And that policy actually was working. And the Iranians understood that, because the second Biden came back in, they turned the proxies back on. They attacked us. Trump comes back into office. They turned the proxies off and they're back at the negotiating table. And the Israelis came in and said, oh, no, Iran said they can't have a nuclear weapon. Trump said they can't have a nuclear weapon. They're negotiating. They moved the red line to no enrichment. We get into the 12-day war and Trump says, okay, I'm going to take this whole enrichment thing off the table. He conducts Midnight Hammer. He takes out the 3 nuclear facilities. And so the enrichment is either completely obliterated or it's buried under so much rubble that they can't dig it out for, a decade plus. And so the enrichment issue should be off the table. We're back at the negotiating table. And then all of a sudden, by the time we hit February, the Israelis are like, we're going to attack right now. And we get forced back into this. And so what is it that basically every time the president comes up with a way out of this war, he gets sucked back into the war? I think that's probably the biggest question right now.
Well, you mentioned the interview I had with Buck, and he started bringing something up. He started implying it slowly and then said it explicitly. He said, Mario, the things that Trump is doing are making no sense at all, where there is something there more than just influence. And he started linking it to the assassination attempts. And he started saying, Mario, I feel Trump is genuinely scared for his life. And he talked about his brother's meeting with Trump, Tucker's meeting with Trump, where Tucker said, if I remember correctly, Tucker said, I met Trump. He did not want this war. But he just said, like, it's going to be all right, if you remember. It's going to be all right. Like he had no choice. It's like someone having to go do something because his family's life is under threat. I'm thinking about a movie, and then his family's like, you don't have to go do this. Like, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. And the family doesn't know that their life is under threat. If he doesn't do what he's going to do, they're under threat. So it's like a feeling where Trump's life could be under threat in some way, whether directly or indirectly. And I would have dismissed that a while ago, but the things that are happening now are so bizarre, especially the war in Iran. And then the post about the Pope was really bizarre as well, but that's a separate discussion, especially when it comes to that decision on Iran and the ongoing decisions that are happening right now that are weakening the US, that maybe there's something there. Maybe it's a conversation worth having. Is that something you've given some thought whatsoever or spoken to anyone about it being a possibility?
I've given a lot of thought to it because I haven't spent as much time around the president as Tucker Carlson has, but I've spent enough. And obviously a different relationship. I was a subordinate, but it was my view from everything that President Trump did in the first administration to his decision-making in the leading up to the 12-day war. He wanted a deal. He didn't want to get sucked into this war. He knew at a gut level that getting sucked into another Middle Eastern war would be a disaster. As a matter of fact, he ran on it 3 times, that getting sucked into another war, and he wouldn't get us sucked into another war because he knew it was a disaster. So I think that we can't take all of the different assassination attempts against President Trump, all the breaches of his security, to include what happened to Charlie Kirk. I just don't think we can dismiss all those things. Now, I'm not saying that like we can definitively prove in a straight line that this one incident or one assassination attempt directly correlates to a decision that he's making today. I don't think that we have that evidence right now, but I'm just saying we can't take all of those different data points off the table. If I were assessing this from the perspective of an intelligence professional, that's what we would do. We would factor in absolutely everything. And I think that's what we have to do in this case, because his decision-making right now is just so out of characteristic. And what I think one of President Trump's talents truly is, and this basically is how he won the presidency in 2016, is he is very, very good at taking large sets of data and basically interpreting what the meaning of it is, what the feeling of it is. I don't think he can ever fully like articulate exactly what like his base is thinking, but he can understand how they're feeling and he can communicate directly with them. So he knows how this war is being perceived. And I think he also knew, like, he was not a foreign policy wonk. He couldn't tell you what the difference between, Samantha Power's foreign policy was versus Dick Cheney's. He just knew they both ended up in disaster and you should avoid it. So I think his ability to interpret large data sets, he's basically said, okay, if I've almost gotten shot twice, basically one time, missed him by a fraction of an inch from being dead. The other time the guy had a gun trained on him on his own golf course. And then we've had numerous breaches of his own security, most recently at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And then one of his, former political allies who was very much against the war with Iran was publicly executed, was killed in a very, very public way. President Trump is going to take all that and he's going to think, okay, am I being sent a message here? Now, whether or not he's being sent a message or not, I don't know. All of that needs to be looked into more, but it's very reasonable for him to think,
you don't know.
Okay,
Joe?
I am, messages received loud and clear. If I can't be made secure, then is my family or my loved ones, are they secure as well? And I know all the detractors will say you're just being conspiratorial, but this isn't just 1 or 2 assassination attempts. This isn't just 1 or 2 breaches of security. This basically is a pattern that's repeated itself over and over again over the last 2 years.
Sorry for my ignorance. When you said one of his allies that was opposed to the war dying publicly, who are you referring to?
Charlie Kirk.
Oh, of course. Okay. I was thinking of a foreign leader. Look, another thing that's very bizarre is when I speak to people that know Trump directly, even they can, and people that have known him for decades, even they could not really explain. They're sitting there speculating what was in Trump's mind because it is so out of character. And there is no logical explanation where it benefits him in any way. If there is a financial benefit, no, there's the complete opposite. Immediately when the war started, people were calling me from the business world saying, Mario, that's them speculating, Trump's empire, the Trump brand has just been completely tarnished now. The Gulf, some of his biggest funders, they've put a lot of money in
I hear that.
Kushner's fund.
I swear.
Those people are pissed right now, thinking of a post-US world order. In terms of US strategic interests, obviously it's a massive failure. So then why? And this is where that concern comes in. And then if you start looking at history and something I haven't done enough studying, you know, the Kennedy assassination, which is still so many unanswered questions,
Think
to
he
say the
is
least.
smart man.
And the history of assassinations and theories that have still not been solved. And then you look at how easy it is to kind of cover things and people move on. I was just talking to Robert Malone, Dr. Malone, just before, and we're kind of discussing how COVID and the gain of function research, which was one of the biggest, most concerning issues facing humanity, people have moved on. It's ongoing. It's proven now that Pfizer and other companies conduct it, but we've moved on because we're not paying attention to the next sexy thing or to the next thing Trump posts. So I think I just don't know if Trump could be threatened to that extent. I worry that as a republic, the whole system's at threat. And that's really concerning. That might have played a role in you stepping down, seeing maybe the system itself. It's not about Trump, but maybe the system itself is corrupt. If someone like Trump, that was such an anti-establishment figure, that was fighting against the swamp, to then go do the swampiest thing imaginable, then it must be seriously ingrained in our systems.
It most certainly is. I mean, I can't put my exact finger on it, and I was there for a lot of it. I saw the Israeli influence. I don't think that explains all of it. I think it explains a lot of it. It's a problem with how much influence and access we've given the Israelis, but I do think there's something more there, because I think if it was just a matter of telling the Israeli donors and the Israeli, the pro-Israeli echo chamber right now, okay, hey, you guys have had enough. I need you to get out of this now. I feel like Trump would do it. I mean, he has his pride. However, he does have great control over the American media, especially like a large segment of conservative media. And I think he could message people that, we won. It's over. He says this frequently. And people, are believing it. So I just don't see like, okay, but then why are we not just leaving and having the victory parade? That's the part that I just can't quite put my finger on. And to me, the more I think about it, every time Trump solves the equation with Iran, someone or some entity, something comes and says, no, you need to stay, or you need to continue to escalate it. And I hope I'm proven wrong. I hope, at the end of the day today, Trump pulls all our troops out and says it's a big victory. And we kind of go on with, trying to put the world back into its place without a major war. So I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping he proves, all of us wrong. But until he does that, I do think it's important for us to ask these questions about like, what is going on? Is the president under some pressure from something that, has power over him? Because if something has power over the president of the United States of America, we have a major problem with our entire system.
Can I ask you a more personal question?
Trying to reinstill that shit.
Your life is pretty extraordinary, and I'll go back to, and the reason I bring it up is Tucker brought it up, so I think it's okay if I bring it up. But obviously, most people probably don't know, because you don't talk about it that often. Maybe not with me, because I'm mainly focused on geopolitics. But your ex-wife, your former wife, was killed in Syria, I think, from an ISIS suicide bombing in 2019. So there's not many people that can say they've served their country to the extent you have. And how much you've suffered and the cost you've faced. The question I have, though, is what would you say were your biggest misconceptions that time in 2019 that you no longer have about everything you stood for, everything you believed, for doing the work that you did and the sacrifices you've given or you've made?
Yeah. At the time, my I've come into my views progressively over time. Post 9/11, I was already in the Army. I always wanted to serve my country. And I truly believed it was us against them, that there was, radical terrorists out there, around every corner that we had to go and fight. Yeah. After my, I think, second or third trip in Iraq, I realized they lied about weapons of mass destruction, lied about Al-Qaeda in Iraq, but I thought we had just gotten it wrong. I had kind of a more innocent view of it. I said, okay, there's no one behind the curtain at Oz, and we had bad intelligence, and therefore our leaders made bad decisions. So I spent the latter part of the second half of my career in working towards becoming part of the intelligence community, so we could prevent things like that from happening. But then watching the way that foreign lobbies, especially the Israeli lobby, had a lot of control and sway over our government. But I didn't fully see that until I was working at this level at my former job at the National Counterterrorism Center and working in the Director of National Intelligence Office. So in 2019, I still very much thought that, Trump at the time was trying to do the right thing. He ran on getting our troops out of the Middle East. He gave us the ability to take out the Islamic Caliphate. I had fought against ISIS under Obama, and Obama wasn't letting us basically finish the job. Under the way Obama was having us fight ISIS, it would have taken us a decade plus to actually take out ISIS. But Trump came in, basically took the gloves off. We had the whole thing wrapped up in about a year. My wife deployed at the latter half of 2018 to Syria. And about a month after she got into country, Trump said, we're getting our troops out of Syria because they took out the last stronghold of the caliphate. Trump basically said, I'm not going to stay here and chase down every single last ISIS guy through the desert. If they don't control any more ground, this is what I ran on. We're going to get them out. And being at the CIA and at the time, I watched basically the mid-level bureaucrats drag their feet and say, no, actually, we know better than the president. We need to stay here. And then a month later, she was killed. And so I did see that Trump at the time was trying to do the right thing. And I truly believe he wanted our troops out, but he didn't understand how government really worked at that point. Now, the stops with him, he should have been much more assertive and gone in there and said, like, I am the commander in chief. I said, get them out now, or I'm going to start firing people.
I've never heard
he
that
should have
name.
done that. And had he done that, we probably would have been much more successful. He may have met more harsh resistance from the deep state or whatever this thing is that we're talking about. But I still thought there was somewhat of a hope for the system. I thought, again, we had out of control mid-level bureaucrats who just hated President Trump. They wanted to stay with this Bush era, Obama era doctrine. I didn't just realize until I came into this position just how deeply ingrained these exterior forces are over us. At the time, too, I was frustrated that we had gotten back involved, in Syria because of the growth of ISIS. But the fact that we were even in Syria in the first place, that we had inserted ourselves into the fight against Assad, which really at the time only stood to benefit the Israelis.
Thank you.
But then once ISIS sprung back up, ISIS was threatening the whole world. So we had to go back in and fight ISIS, who we had funded to try to take out Assad. So I had my eyes open that basically our policy of starting these different brush fires and having to go back in and put them out later on was counterproductive. But again, that's another big reason why I supported President Trump early on, because he really articulated this well.
On the point of the buck stops with him, I agree. But also one thing I'm starting to think more about is we really don't know what happens behind the scenes. We don't know these conversations he has. Now, I'm not giving him excuses. I'm not defending him because I really don't know. But I think it's something to take into consideration. Someone that was just shot almost shot in the head, that changes a lot in a lot of ways. Like, you just don't know whether he's going through paranoia. Some people are saying it just it makes you question a lot of things.
Yeah, it really does. And to me, even just at the beginning of this administration, President Trump didn't seem to have much appetite or desire to get involved in another war in the Middle East. He kind of understood the stakes. And then, around this time last year, kind of everything changed. But he still seemed like he didn't want to get sucked in after Midnight Hammer. He wanted to pull us away from getting sucked back in. But again, it just seemed almost unavoidable. And then he basically kind of walled himself off from having a lot of different advisors around him. And it's very easy, I think, to keep the president, who's very busy and has a very broad portfolio. It's very easy to give him just a little bit of information and then move him on to the next topic, and then message that everything's going great. And so, again, the buck does stop with him. He does need to be able, though, to step back as the commander in chief and say, wait a sec, my staff is handling me here. I'm not getting a diversity of opinions. And I have to make sure they execute my agenda. And him not being able to do that in this critical juncture is costing him, and it's costing the country right now.
There's something that, again, Buck said to me yesterday. He goes,
radio.
You said it in passing. He said, voters are used to being lied to. So in terms of politicians, presidents making promises and not delivering on them. Now, one president makes it, okay, they're a liar. They lied to get elected. Another president does it, they lied. But if it happens time and time and time and time again, maybe there's something to it. We believe in the democracy. Most people have kind of concluded the lazy conclusion is that our politicians always lie. That's not the case. Politicians are humans just like me and you. But why is it they make promises and later cannot deliver on them? What do they face behind the scenes? And there's been some quotes from former presidents, and I don't remember them. You might know them. They kind of hint at something behind this. I can't remember the president that mentioned it a long time ago about the military-industrial complex and that becoming too powerful. Said it pretty explicitly. Theodore Roosevelt. I don't remember. Putin also said something along the lines. Yeah, so Putin said something along the lines where I just meet a different president. We come to a deal, and then men with black suits come, and everything changes. So it starts to make you wonder. Again, I'm not the conspiracy type guy, Illuminati behind the scenes. It's not that simple. I think it's more systemic. The way I see it is there's just too many interest groups with a lot of influence. But influence is fine because that's part of the system. But when it starts to escalate into something more than just influence, that's when you start to worry. And look, it worried you enough into resigning from your position after so many decades of serving your country and sacrificing so much for your country.
Which one of them guys' channel was that on?
A question I have on Iraq, something I haven't looked into enough, is something Tucker talks about, is Israeli influence into dragging the US into the war in Iraq. I know that Netanyahu has been calling for it, but there is no way that war was also for Israel. Or is it a possibility?
Well, there's the alliance between the neoconservatives and the pro-Israel lobby. In many cases, it's two birds of the same feather. But yeah, if in the lead up to the Iraq war, I mean, Netanyahu testified on how Saddam Hussein was getting weapons of mass destruction. This would be a massive threat. I believe he also talked about the links to terror with Saddam Hussein. There was a little bit of a tactical disagreement within the Israeli politicians at the time. I believe Ariel Sharon was the actual president, and he said, no, you guys shouldn't go after Iraq, you should go after Iran. But eventually he got on board with the Iraq theory, because he said we need to go into Iraq because we need that as a staging base, essentially, for ops in Iran, obviously. And so eventually
Sharon,
you did have
Sharon
the full weight. Yeah, Sharon, he got on board at the very end with Netanyahu's theory of the case. Initially, he said, yeah, don't do Iraq, do Iran instead. So this was the Israelis basically telling us which country they wanted us to go take out. So at the end of the day, there was still a massive amount of Israeli influence on the lead up to the war. They had slightly disagreed which country to go after first. But even before 9/11, I mean, they basically had laid out their goal of overthrowing basically 7 countries on them, and the crown jewel being Iran. Iraq was there, Syria was there, Libya under Gaddafi was there, Yemen, of course, was there, Lebanon, of course, was there. And so the Israelis have, I think, always, if you read what they're saying, they've always been pretty clear about what they wanted. And so they leaned heavily on that. There's an oil angle too. They also wanted to be able to get Iraqi oil directly to Israel without having to go through Syria, because
how many men have died over
but yeah, oil? I mean, they were definitely, I think, very influential in that process. You also had, the Don Rumsfeld guys and who had their own neoconservative ideology about why we should go after Saddam. There was kind of the Bush family grudge of going after Saddam as well. So I think it was kind of the perfect storm of nefarious interests that got us into the war with Iraq. But basically, by the time that we had taken out the government of Saddam Hussein, the Iranians, being closer to the problem that we were, they were able to put a lot of their people, because as you know, Iraq is a Shia country predominantly, so they had deep ties into the Shia community there. They were basically able to seep their people into every part of the Iraqi government. So by the time that happened, the Israelis were like, this is bad. Because then once we pulled out of Iraq in 2011, 2012 timeframe, you basically had the Shia crescent that went from Tehran through Baghdad into Damascus, dumping off weapons right to Hezbollah in Israel's backyard. And this is why we got involved in Syria. This is why all of a sudden it sprung up that Assad must go and we have to take out the Assad regime. And so basically, in order for us to kind of like make up for what we had done by creating the Shia crescents through our own bumbling inside of Iraq, we said, okay, we'll support the war inside Syria. And in order for us to arm anybody that was even close to being capable inside Syria, we were, as Hillary Clinton said, like on the same side as Al-Qaeda. And so we had to support Al-Qaeda, which eventually spun into ISIS. And so we, ended up lighting the brush fire that we had to go back and put out later on.
I don't blame you for resigning, man. Like at some level, enough is enough.
Yeah, I mean, our system's just this current outlook that we have on the world and the way we've executed our foreign policy, especially in the Middle East. It's not sustainable. It hasn't worked. And if we continue to go down this path, it's eventually going to have massive ramifications in our country. The war on terror was a big enough disaster, but the effects of it were largely only felt by a small group in the all-volunteer force.
So if we're to believe Joe, we're not going back. We're not going to bomb anymore.
The economic effects, I think, have been catastrophic, but they trickled out over a long period of time, but these wars cost us somewhere between 6 and 9 trillion. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and everywhere else, and our national debt, inflation, it all adds up. But Iran is so geographically strategic, and there's the chokehold on 1/5 of the world's energy flow that comes to the Straits of Hormuz, that I think we're going to see the effects in a very big way. Again, if Trump doesn't reverse course.
Going back to my original question about you serving your country, if anything, you're still serving your country. Just serving it the right way is by kind of shedding light to this issue and doing these shows and podcasts. People behind the
That's
scenes.
why I resigned. Thank you. I appreciate that. But that's why I resigned, because I felt like I could be more impactful here on the outside than on the inside.
Yeah. Just click. Maybe you've said it on other shows, but it just clicked in my mind that you're still serving your country. Are people serving the country in the military? Are they, as they realize this and they hear people like you speak up, doesn't that just demoralize people that have gone and fought these wars? Have you seen that across among troops, or not as much?
If anything, most folks that serve our military, they have very noble intent. They're patriots, but they're smart people too. And so they don't want to just hear the party line. They want to hear someone who's actually been in leadership positions speak to them like they're adults, like they're intelligent people, because they are. So when I was serving overseas, after my first, second, combat deployment, when I was on my third deployment, I was like, wait a sec, pretty much most people above me who are supposed to have a plan are literally just regurgitating the exact same talking points when clearly things are not going well here on the ground. I just need someone to talk to me like an adult. And so I sought out a few fringe voices out here and out there. I say fringe because they weren't given a lot of airtime at the time, but a lot of them were very, very credible. There's a guy named Colonel David Hackworth. He's deceased now, but he was at the time, he was the most decorated American soldier. He fought in Korea
because
as an enlisted man, became an officer, fought in Vietnam.
There was definitely a different way to run the industrial side of America without oil. And they fucking killed the people. Anybody that tries to come up with the shit. You know that little dude, Nature Jab, the one that's making gasoline out of plastic? You watching, which I mean, it's already petroleum based, right? But you watch and see if they don't do something to him.
Signed during the Vietnam War in protest of the war, and became a pretty outspoken advocate for rethinking the way America fights wars and how we fight our wars. I found myself reading a lot of his works, a lot of his columns that he had at the time, and a couple of his books. And I was like, man, why don't we have more leaders that are speaking out against this? So I think what our troops want to hear is just someone to kind of level with them and say, hey, this is a debate going on, back home, and you have a job to do. Go do your job. Stay safe. We pray for you. We support you. But there are people back here at home that are advocating to get us out of this debacle and to only use our military when it's in our vital national security interest.
So he don't think.
What do you make of all the firings and the resignations within the military under Hegseth, number one? And number two, what do you think it would take for that to happen, for that change to happen within the US? The second question is a lot harder one.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag with DOW, because things with this war are, in the last couple months since this war started, have been so controversial. I think there are some people who are probably being fired or leaving in a less public way than I did, but probably for similar reasons. I don't know for sure, but that's my guess. However, Hegseth, when he got into the DOW, the Biden administration and even Obama before that, they had promoted a lot of officers who were very politically motivated. And so a lot of the initial house cleaning that Hegseth was doing, I think was needed. I think in general, the culture that Hegseth has put back into the DOW, it's a solid culture because he is trying to get back to warrior ethos. But this is where you need a really responsible president and National Security Council to say, we're only going to use these warriors when it's in our vital national security interest. That heavy warrior culture can be very much exploited and used when we're sending our guys off to fight and die in wars that aren't in our vital national security interest. So like I like the spirit of what he's trying to do. We're just applying it in a very wasteful and foolish way, in my opinion, right now.
Demoralizing way as well. I've spoken to some military officials, former and current, and on the show and off the show. A lot of them are just upset about it. Even people that are supportive of the war, supportive of Trump, are just upset at that particular part because they said to me, they say, Mario, you go through a system thinking it will be fair, thinking it will be based on meritocracy, And then you see people that have been let go for no explanation, and people start to speculate. Is it about loyalty? Is it about racism or culture or whatever it was? And that uncertainty kind of demoralizes people that trust the system. Trusting the system is really important within the military, and what I've been told.
Yeah,
I want to kind of go to the second question, though, harder one is, what do you think it would take for things to change? It's a tough one.
In order for the political system to truly be reformed, there's a lot of little/big things that we can do. Money in politics is a major issue. However, all this can be overridden if the American people are more engaged.
As he gets it down small enough where he can actually sell it to individuals where they can like recycle their plastic at home and come up with gasoline, they'll off him.
The only reason money in politics works is because you can flood the zone in a democracy with ads, with campaign mailers. You can put out kind of pro-candidate information, disinformation, et cetera. If we had more informed voters, and this is hard to do because people are busy. The economy is really bad right now. People are working multiple jobs. They can barely keep their head above the water. It's a major pain to do your due diligence on everybody from like your school board to your county commissioner all the way up to your president, and to know what key issues those positions can truly affect. So it is a heavy burden to put on Americans, but basically that's what being an American citizen is all about. Like you have this privilege to vote, to choose your leaders. If you want the money and all the bad influence not to impact as much as the will of the people, then we do need the citizenry to get much more engaged. I think if we had more people that were educated on specifically like what the president's actual powers are, like unilaterally, what can the president affect? The president, in a presidential election, will spend so much time debating a lot of these social and cultural issues that the president truly can't affect. In order for the president to do pretty much anything domestically, he has to go through Congress, and then he has to go through the states. This is why a lot of times, the president, even President Trump or whoever, their domestic agenda will get really stymied really easily. And then presidents will gravitate towards foreign policy, because in foreign policy, especially because our Congress doesn't exert the constitutional authorities that they have over war, the president basically is the king when it comes to foreign policy. They can start wars. They can do intelligence operations. It's much easier for them to just drift into foreign policy. So if we had the American people that understood that, and maybe, they don't agree on a certain candidate's stance on domestic issues that the president really can't affect, but we have a president that makes a hard commitment not to get us into any wars unless we're attacked or there's a direct threat, and he goes through Congress, and he's not going to allow, the Israelis or any other foreign government to influence us. I think we'd be in a much better spot. That's why I'm a little bit hopeful for 2028. I think that this issue of no more wars, no more Israeli influence in our politics, I think that's going to resonate on both the left and the right. And I think there's a potential for us to have almost like a compromise unity candidate who basically says, on this big issue, I'm not going to get us involved in these wars. We're going to rein back the massive militaristic American empire. We're going to focus here at home. And when we focus here at home, there's going to be a bunch of disagreements. And the Congress and the states are going to work that out. But a lot of the resources that have been sucked up and sent overseas, they're going to be able to be used here at home to help our people. And again, there'll be disagreements on how we help our people. We all know healthcare is an issue. There's a way that Republicans think about healthcare. There's a way that Democrats think about healthcare, and everything in between. I'd much rather us have that discussion than like the discussion of like, which country in the Middle East are we sending like 3 aircraft carrier groups, battle groups to again? And why do we need to authorize $1.5 trillion for the Department of War to start, yet another war?
If Thomas Massey wins, which you heard me talk with this with Buck, we're looking live at the betting platforms. If Thomas Massey wins, that could be an indicator of things are shifting. Yeah. And people are starting to realize. There's a final question for you is, obviously not sure if you can answer this, but has anyone from the administration, anyone close to Trump, reached out to you since you resigned and had like a really heart-to-heart conversation to understand your position and try to explain the other position?
Yeah, there has. And I had a conversation right before I left. I can't say too much about that because it was in confidence, but there's definitely folks at high levels in the administration that, wanted to know why. And, just that they're at least aware of why I resigned, and I know they're watching what's taking place right now. I hope the president is as well.
Yeah, obviously I have 20 questions about this, but I'm sure this is not something you can discuss. Joe, again, keep doing what you're doing. Appreciate you coming on. Next time, at least have the decency to bring your cats. You know, everyone's asked for them.
They're sleeping on the chair. I'm sorry. I was waiting for them to wake up.
Always a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for your time, Joe.
Thank you. Absolutely. Have a good one.
See you, brother. All right, guys, let me know what you think of the conversation. One of my favorite today, one of my favorite this week. Learned a lot. Someone I love having on the show. And just so sincere, so genuine. And I think I would love to see more people like Joe elected in office, even though he's
Oh, this. Damn, I thought I switched that over.
Talk with him at Alex Jones. And I thought I was going into a good faith discussion. I thought we're going to have more time. And long story short, he started telling a story. And I was 98% sure that that was incorrect, what he was saying. But he said it with such confidence, like, man, you know, he might have, because he's going to go into a news conference. And the news conference was over 6 months ago. And I'd watched it, and I didn't remember him relaying it. I didn't remember it as he relayed it. But we're going to show you that he just will out and out lie and never think twice. And by the way, I'll talk about the text message I shared with him after this event, just kind of lay the icing on the cake.
Literally saying on film in a press conference, debunking Tyler Robinson's family.
Am I too far?
And saying, out my personal friend who used to be a sheriff for 20 years was the one who used to be Tyler Robinson's boy.
Hezbollah over inside of Beirut were actually developed by the Israelis.
Around Iran, like we previously have been able to.
Yeah.
Good. Video
That's
yet.
the first part of it.
No.
I was getting there. Dude.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Gary Melton, and 9/11 happened.
Hey,
Days
thank
later,
you,
I was
smart
in
mouth.
the
I
military,
appreciate that, man.
Or went to the recruiting station. Spent some time in the regular army as a sniper team leader during the initial push into Iraq. Came back in SF, got out in 2012, took a job with the Department of State as a special tactics instructor. And we started Paramount Tactical Solutions. And in 2023, this is what I do full time. Believe it or not, I'm not paid by any feds, Israelis, Bibi Netanyahu, or anybody else. So, Gary paid. The only person paying me is this guy. He's got two thumbs. But look, there's a lot going on in the world. And I think information we are definitely in an information war, to quote one of our good people out there on the interwebs as well, Alex Jones. But anyways, look, there's a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of things have happened, especially since September, since Charlie Kirk's assassination. I think the culmination of a much larger psyop kind of started right there, and what we're seeing is something that's taken off and has turned much more political. And I do think that truth is important. There's nothing more important than the truth. And
all right,
there's a lot of folks that have given into the idea that their channels are more important, clicks, views are more important, and it's a real shame. And one of the conversations I was having with Matt, probably about a week and a half ago or so, I was like, look, there's a lot of guys out there that are in SF and SOCOM, in the military, that are basically speaking for either the SF regiment, for the military in general. And I have a real problem with that. And because some of these that are the most prominent are, quite frankly, just the biggest liars. And or I'll at least say this. I'm gonna try to be as gracious and as professional to everybody that we talk about tonight as I possibly can. They are not telling the truth. All right. Now, if either that's because they're just so irresponsible that they get it wrong every single time. But what it comes down to is people are participating in, quite frankly, anti-American propaganda. It is okay. It's not only okay, it is your duty as an American to criticize your government, to hold them accountable. But when time after time after time, you're lying about your government, you're lying about certain things that have political and national ramifications.
Mama, how you doing?
And then on top of that, you are using your Green Beret, your military status, or whatever else as your credibility to do so. That's a real problem. And matter of fact, that is 10 times worse to me than stolen valor. Stolen valor is a real problem. But usually when we're talking about someone that with stolen valor, they're trying to, kind of exaggerate their experiences, exaggerate, their awards or whatever. It only benefits them. When you're speaking for the entire military, or you're speaking using the credibility of the military or SOCOM career, whatever it is, and you're lying incessantly, you are doing such damage to everything that you're doing has national implications, and you are telling people, a lot of people are going to believe you just because you have a Green Beret or you have an SF or you're a SEAL or whatever it is. So I thought it was going to be a great idea to get a bunch of veterans together. And I just want to say that, like, we're not speaking for the regiment as far as SF. We're not speaking for the military. We're giving you a counter narrative and what we believe to be the truth. And I think the guys on here, I chose specifically because I know they spend a lot of time ensuring what they're putting out as the truth. And if they get something wrong, they have the integrity to come back and tell you, look, hey, I got this wrong, and I want to correct the record. That's not what we see from the other side. So I've said my piece on that. Matt, why don't you kind of say whatever you want to say and kind of lead us off a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm with you. I think there's a lot of people that are kind of like leaning on the regiment or leaning on their military characteristics and speaking for all of us. And I don't think that really quite works that way, nor should it. Nobody in this world has the exact same opinions at any moment in time. And I don't care who you vote for, what it is. We all formulate our own opinions. People on this planet that are married know that to be the truth. And we're going to start this off to give you guys kind of a once over of what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be talking about Joe Kent. We are going to be talking about Nate from Valhalla VFT. Are we bringing up Sean Ryan today? Are we doing that? I didn't pull those clips that I wanted to pull.
We can talk about them in some generalities. I think
we might need to have a part 2 on that, but there is a portion of it that I think does bleed over to Joe, because, you know, when we start talking about the grift, particularly that's taking place in it, you know, Sean Ryan's now putting out updates from Joe Kent, you know, on his, you know, assessments. And that is what it is. It's people jumping over into their Patreon and paying for it that way. That is what it is. But the one thing that's readily apparent, and I think that everybody on this panel would agree on, is the way in which he resigned was one of probably the most unprofessional things I've ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. Is that true across the board with the letter of resignation? Yeah. And that is something that
I definitely agree.
That is something that within a corporate world, if you were to take that letter of resignation and you just share it to that extent, with all of that, you're never getting another job in corporate America. And it has a lot of mixed politics and a lot of mixed feelings that end up going into it. And I think the one thing that we actually need to talk about, if you wouldn't mind queuing up that first video that I have there for these guys, is just kind of how it goes into, how I would say, this narrative that Israel is causing everything to go down. Even if I go over to Joe's page, which I'll show you guys here in a sec, everything is about Israel, and it is just hate for Israel. Israel's drug us into this. And this one in particular, he is talking about Israel kind of dragging us into this war with Iran. But in this clip, what he's talking about is, as long as Trump can keep Israel in check, that this cease is going to be successful.
Resulted in the change that we wanted. You know, you and I be having this conversation like in Kabul or Baghdad, some prime real estate, but we're not. So yeah, yes, we have beaten the crap out of the Iranians. However, the Iranians have come to utilize their strategic advantage that we really can't take away from them permanently, which is geography. Like, they can control the Straits of Hormuz to a certain extent. Could we smack them temporarily and take it? Yeah, sure. But they have kind of come into their own on grabbing the Straits, which is something they weren't doing in previous iterations. And so now they.
So I'd like to pause it right there. Right, because he brings up and he says it's something they weren't doing in previous iterations, because those previous iterations, what was happening was not to this extent. Killing Soleimani, for example, right? That was not a direct attack on Iran. It was a direct attack on Soleimani. Everybody knows that Soleimani was a pile of garbage. The reason the Gulf nations and the reason the rest of the world has been so reluctant to do anything against Iran is because this has always been a card that they've kept in their back pocket that they can pull out. It's not Iran shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. It's not Iran controlling the Strait of Hormuz. It's Iran threatening to attack, and the commercial vessels and their insurance companies telling them they're not allowed to transit through it. So by stating that if we didn't do this, this wouldn't be a problem, is one of those things where, well, we wouldn't get in gunfights with criminals if we would just allow them to rob banks.
Yeah,
exactly. You know, it is the same general concept that goes into that. It is not up for debate that Iran has 60+% enriched uranium. And we're going to get into it a little bit deeper, but that's his first, statement that he ends up making. And then he starts getting into Israel.
They are. And so they're really flexing that muscle. So I think we have a very hard lift, and I think we're going to have to eat a little bit of humble pie in the sense of like we're not going to be able to just order around Iran like we previously have been able to. We're going to have to kind of address them as peers, or as someone we're not necessarily peers, but that we respect.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be hard for us to do because it's war and it's heated. But again, man, the fact that the vice president's there right now, I'm cautiously optimistic. This is the right move by the president. I know he's getting a lot of pressure from the same people that are attacking me right now are saying like, why is the president doing this? Like they should just be kicking the crap out of Iran. Go, go, go. So for him to continue to weather that storm, like I respect the fact that he's doing that.
And you bring up Vance, and
so JD Vance going up over into Pakistan for these negotiations was not because Iran is this huge foe that we have to bring it up. The reason JD Vance actually went to Pakistan isn't because we look at them as if they're peers. It's because Iran refused to negotiate with Kushner and Witkoff. Kushner because of his connections to Israel, and Witkoff because they don't trust him because of the previous negotiations when we ended up, during the 12-day war saying that we were going to end up bombing them, that we were going to go into a negotiation with them on the same day that we opened up bombing them. And so they're saying they don't trust them. Therefore, now we're sending JD Vance at their request. And Trump is trying to make a deal, trying to get the stuff off the table so that we can stop bombing them and save the United States a little bit of money here. But that is the reason for them going, not because we view them as a foe, but because we're trying to appease the international community at the same time of getting this uranium out without risking any more U.S. lives.
I know there's a lot of these quotes are, I don't know if it's a joint article.
And I want to pause it right there, and I want to open up this next chunk of the video. Yeah, I think we're there. Let me go ahead.
The Times of Israel article, there's New York Times. I guess it was it kind of timelined like Netanyahu's presentation in February 11th, and then some of the reaction to it, and then the stuff that kind of got the big headlines was
that doesn't
vice
make
president
any
saying,
sense.
"I think it's a bad idea, but if you want to do it, I'll support you." Do you think Vance saying that had any impact whatsoever on what?
Why wouldn't they let them drill?
Does, or do you think
that don't make no?
You do,
They
or
put
just
windmills
any type
up
of
over
interaction
there,
you have,
don't they?
like Trump's going to listen, but he's ultimately got to do his own thing.
I think he's going to listen. I think in this case, that New York Times article that the White House hasn't really pushed back on, which tells you a lot.
Yeah.
To me, that article was fairly accurate in the sense of like Israel driving this operation, Israel pushing regime change. So that article to me sounds about right. The president made the choice he did, although that was.
Now he's bringing up the New York Times article. In that particular New York Times article, it also says that after Benjamin Netanyahu and Mossad ended up having a meeting with Donald Trump inside of the Situation Room, that Donald Trump brought in 2 additional members of the U.S. intelligence community. And those 2 additional members of the U.S. intelligence community reviewed the intel that Israel provided overnight, and they made several assessments. That number 1, yes, we could kill the Ayatollah. Number 2, we could affect their ability to project themselves, i.e. their ballistic missiles and their foreign terror organizations. But as it goes down to regime change, which he's going to start, pushing, and it's kind of a common theme, as it goes down to the regime change, that the U.S. isn't going to take part in that, and it specifically says that that's their problem. But it fits into the Israeli agenda that they're pushing on. Do you guys kind of agree with that? Because I've got a lot more examples of that.
No, I do agree with that. And this is one of the things that Joe Kent, number one, he wasn't in the decision-making process at all. He was part of the NCTC, which is obviously a Intel Fusion Center. And one of the things that really irritates me is him projecting familiarity with Donald Trump. He's not part of his cabinet. He wasn't in meetings with him every single day. And he doesn't even know what meeting he's having with other groups all the time. But yes, the thing that Joe and many others are alleging essentially is that, Trump is surrounding himself by a bunch of people that are either controlled by Israel or that Trump himself is being controlled by Israel, which, ludicrous on its face.
Absolutely. It's really difficult to swallow something like that when you see the president making tweets where he's literally prohibiting Israel from doing what they need to do in Lebanon, where President Trump is ordering Israel around like they work for him. I don't know how you can try to make the case and make people believe that Israel is the one actually calling the shots there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, he's about to make another one. What about you, Chase? What you got?
It's the same garbage we've been combating since October 7th, 2023. Like I don't know if you remember the days when all we did was just like argue about whether the thing that Trump said was too crazy or, not crazy enough, and like make fun of lefties. And now we have to deal with all these like people that are just like, it's because of Israel, it's because of the Jews. And I'm like, dude, like you fell for propaganda made for Russian peasants in 1903. And then the same nonsense that the Nazis pushed and a bunch of Germans fell for as well. And now you're falling for literally the exact same thing that history has already proven multiple times is false. And you're telling me the same talking points. And you're using all the same, like you'll be like, oh, they rule the world. They own all mass media. They own all this. And I'm like, okay, show me how they own that. Where do they own all the mass media? Where do they own? They're overrepresented. How are they overrepresented? Explain that. Explain to me how they're overrepresented. Oh, they just are. And if they aren't, then it's because they rewrote the books and they rewrote the history books. And I'm like, dude, all right. So are they aliens? Are they super like beings that are just some magic and they can take like it's the stupidest shit I've ever heard in my whole life. And now I have to spend time like combating this because it's so widespread and it's so every single day. And now I don't get to we don't get to fight against Marxists and all the people that are actually, and it's the same people pushing this, right?
Yeah.
So all the same people that pushed, all the COVID propaganda, all the same people that pushed everything against Trump the first time, the same people that pushed the leftist propaganda that almost got Trump assassinated twice, that got Charlie Kirk assassinated. Now we're having to combat that because they fooled a bunch of people on the right as well. And I'm like, what are we doing, guys? Like,
I'm starting to think that I'm sorry to talk over you. I'm starting to think that the right-left continuum is more of a circle because people fall off to the right so far that they end up on the left. It seems like they're all espousing the same things.
You guys are going to love this next clip.
Yeah. Oh, let's roll it. Because I'm already fired up. I got blood pressure going. We're good.
I've got so many good clips for you guys. You guys are gonna love this next clip. All right, if you guys could throw that one up center screen. Yep. It's a brand new one. I should be sharing with you guys. Perfect. Let's go ahead and let that sucker roll.
They don't know what the fuck they're doing. Can we see the same thing from Trump now?
I think we probably will. I mean, that was a very strongly worded post they put out, and it was the right post. It was the right message. But here's the thing. It actually has to be followed up with action because there's been lots of presidents, to include President Trump, who have been strong with the Israelis, who've used strong language. But the problem is we still continue to send billions and billions of dollars of military assistance to the Israelis. Every time they ask us for something, we essentially give it to them. This entire.
So let's pause it right there. Does the USA give money to Israel for their military industrial complex? Answer, yes. 80% of that money goes back into the United States military industrial complex. That is essentially what the United States is doing, is subsidizing, all right, our U.S. military industrial complex to Israel. So it's creating more jobs. So they do ask for, certain amounts of munitions. Every country does when they go to buy it from the United States. Israel's no different than them. The United States approves it. Now, here's the catch. We can all go all the way back to 2024 when, was it 24? Yeah, 24, when Israel was about to go into Rafah. And Joe Biden actually ended up holding up the arms sales to Israel. And that's when Kamala Harris actually came out and said, that Israel can't go into Rafah. There's no place for these people to go. I've looked at the maps. I've studied the maps. There's no place for them to go. The fact is that Israel doesn't control the United States. We control Israel. It's just a fact. We didn't even allow them to go into Rafah. And the result of that was a United States citizen that goes by the name of Hirsch Goldberg that ended up getting killed inside of Rafah as a result of Joe Biden actually holding that up. So when we start talking about, is the United States, just outright funding Israel, the answer is no, we're not. And as a matter of fact, Israel's moving away because of that. Israel's actually moving at popping the nipple of the United States out of their mouth, and they're developing their own weapon systems. The bombs that actually ended up killing Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah over inside of Beirut, were actually developed by the Israelis. Those were their very own bunker busters that they ended up using to do that. So it's not like the United States has this carte blanche across Israel, that we get to tell them every single thing. They're actually trying to move away from it because of that. Do you guys agree with that?
It's not only,
Absolutely.
they're not only trying to move away from it because of that, They're trying to move away from it because of all of the stipulations we put on them and the control we have over them because of that money. Like people don't agree, like they're like, oh, we give them money. Like, yeah, we give them money with strings attached. You understand how that works? Like the same, you're telling me that I'm saying something and I'm getting paid to say it, right? You're telling me that I'm saying something that's strings attached, right? Well, we actually literally do that, and it's public record with Israel. But you won't acknowledge that. You'll call us all these things that you can't prove, but you won't acknowledge the reality of the room is that we pull the strings. And I did a whole article on it, on the whole financial footprint. I posted all the sources. I made graphs, like everything, and people still don't believe. They're like, nah.
Well, the reality is, if we were being honest, Israel is an American proxy in the Middle East, and
yes,
that's exactly what they are. And so we are able to project power by, with, and through them without putting ourselves at risk. And we have a lot of control in the Middle East because of Israel and because they are an ally. Yeah, they go off the rails sometimes, but that's another thing too. Like, just recently I've been talking to some people that live in Israel, and you guys, like, people out there watching, do you not understand the sentiment that is in Israel, that they're pissed off at Bibi Netanyahu for the same things that people are trying to say that they're mad about Trump? Like, they're mad at Bibi Netanyahu because the United States controls their government, their military actions. They want to do things that we're constantly putting, the binders on them, and they don't have autonomy in the Middle East. So, take that for what it is. But those are just facts, because we hold all the cards like we do in the rest of the entire world. We just finally have a president that's willing to actually swing his weight around, the weight of the United States around, both economically and militarily. And we just haven't seen that before.
Yeah. You guys want to keep it rolling? Let's keep it rolling.
War could have been prevented, even going back to the 12-day war. It could have been prevented if we just simply would have taken away elements of Israelis' defense funding or some of the features of their air defense that we give them, and said to them very plainly, we will give you enough to defend yourselves. However, we will not give you any support or any material to go on the offense. That could have prevented this whole thing. That's what several of us were actually petitioning for ahead of the 12-day war. After the 12-day war, after Midnight Hammer, there was a hope in the administration and a hope from President Trump that, hey, we completely destroyed their nuclear production capabilities. This is a done deal for us. Now, seeing how aggressive the Israelis had been and how they view the opportunity right now to take down the Iranian regime, we knew that the Israelis were going to come back and demand more action. We could find ourselves in a similar pattern where the Israelis right now realize they've made Trump so angry, and there's enough people speaking out and pointing out how Trump got tricked, he got played, etc., that Trump just says, okay, I've had enough of your crap, Bibi. And the Israelis say, okay, fine.
I was literally arguing with one of my little buddies today, and I kept saying, dude, I just don't want to talk about it. You don't see what's really going on. I'm not the right one to explain it to you. But he was going, Trump don't care about the American people. I said, I heard it, but that ain't what the fuck he meant. And it's funny how these motherfuckers that cannot think for themselves just buy everything hook, line, and sinker.
Fine. But we continue to fund them. That gives the Israelis the ability later on,
I
in
love
a
this
couple months or even less time
than
than that,
known
a couple
him
weeks,
for years,
to come back in, to
since
take
he
an
was
action that
little
breaks the
shit.
ceasefire, that
Just
sucks us
fucking
back into the
right.
conflict, or they use their echo chamber, which is what you and I basically just described. A series of advisors within the White House, Israeli government officials who have access to us, who can circumvent basically the intelligence channels, pro-Israel elements in the media, the donors that talk to.
So there's so much stuff that we have to address just in that 2-minute statement, because he rambles so much on so many different topics. And every single time I hear people do this, you have to address each single point, because if you don't, you let it slide.
Yeah.
And so we start with the 12-day war, because ever since we ended up interviewing him over on X and on my channel, the one now statement that's coming out is that Israel influenced Trump to go from no nukes to no nuclear enrichment, or no enrichment of uranium. And the fact is that we pulled out of the JCPOA in 2019, not because of Israeli influence, but because the Obama administration is the only modern administration, right, in U.S. history that has wanted Iran to be able to enrich uranium. That's the only one. That is the only one. Back during Bush's administration, we started to develop the GBU, 57, the 30,000-pound bunker buster?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yeah. We started to develop the GBU 57 in 2007, specifically for specifically because they were working towards enrichment. And it wasn't until Obama got in office that we signed the JCPOA. And then Trump ends up getting elected, right? Like the following year. And then we end up pulling out of the JCPOA. Why? Because of the enrichment clause. And Iran, by the way, was still beholden to the JCPOA by numerous other countries, including the UK, including Germany, including China, including Russia. Like all of these countries were all a part of it. The EU, right? All a part of the JCPOA. And so for Iran to pretend like they weren't a part of that, not to mention they were signatories to the NPT, right? And they failed every aspect of that. And so we're backing out because we don't want them to enrich uranium. And they're blaming it on the United States of America. Joe Kent's blaming it on the president of the United States, saying that Israel influenced them, when the fact is every U.S. president, minus Barack Obama, was against Iran enriching uranium. Just flat out. There's no other way to look at that. That's just a fact. And I called him out on X for it, and he ended up trying to come out and state that, well, it wasn't Trump that said it, it was, the Secretary of State. Like, okay, so you're telling me that the Secretary of State's now going against, President Trump's decisions? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Like, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And they're picking and choosing little lines that end up going out of it. Anybody else?
Well, think about what Joe Kent is saying here. He's actually advocating for the status quo. He's saying that we shouldn't have gone in the 12-day war. We shouldn't have done this. We should have just left it the way it was. And the way it was Iran funding all of these proxies that didn't just stay in the Middle East. Hezbollah is in Venezuela, and Hamas has got people in the United States, and so does Iran. And my friend Oliver North, an Iranian kill team tried to kill him and his family. And they tried to go after Mike Pompeo, and they tried to go after the Secretary of State. So, I mean, he's advocating that let's just stay with that. Let's just go with that. And we finally have a president, as you mentioned, who has the guts to actually do something about this and address the root problem that everybody knew was the problem all along. They didn't have to, it wasn't Hezbollah, it wasn't Hamas, it wasn't the Houthis, it was Iran. And all of this just kind of came to a head, of course, when the Iranian people begged President Trump to come do something.
Yeah, and I want to address this comment real quick. Sammy, we'll just call her Sammy. Sammy says Kent knows nothing. Well, that's not true, actually, Sammy, because the problem is 6 months ago, Joe Kent was saying the exact same things that we are, including like completely against the idea that Israel controls the United States. Very aggressive toward Iran, saying that we should take out their ballistic capabilities. So it's not that he knows something. I don't know what his motivation is. I'm done trying to figure out people's motivations. All I'm going to do is say, hey, you know what? I know that they're lying. They've changed for some reason, and I don't give a shit what their motivation is. What I can see is the trajectory of their actions, their words, and what they're wanting done, and I can see it's damaging to the United States. I don't know, because I think, what Joe Kent's motivation is different from Tucker, it's different from Valhalla, it's different from Sean Ryan. I don't know what these people's motivations are, but what I can tell you is he is not telling you the truth, and I don't believe that he's telling you what he actually believes. He's telling you something that's politically expedient. I don't know why. Maybe he wants to run for president. Maybe he wants to run for office. Doesn't really matter. But he doesn't believe what he is saying, because what he's saying now is completely novel to what he said for like the last 5 or 6 years.
Now, keep in mind that there are state actors, Russia, China, Iran, who are very specifically targeting these right-wing commentators, targeting them with everything from money to just sending people to make friends. Mario Nawfal right there is if you do a little bit of research into who that guy is, he asked me on his show, and I said absolutely not. But there are so many people that are on the right who have made that 180-degree switch that it can't be, just coincidence. And when you start to look into it, you see that Russia and China and Iran and Qatar are very heavily influencing American Christian conservatives and the right, and they're targeting them specifically, and they've been much more successful at that than they have been at, say, taking over Ukraine or, whatever.
The other problem that we have in the conservative right now is there's a bunch of folks that saw that it was expedient and profitable to jump on the Trump train, even though they weren't conservatives. They weren't even really moderates. They're more like maybe kind of conservative Democrats. And then once they saw an opportunity to become opposition, which is always going to be more profitable, you're going to get more clicks, views. Opposition is just the way to go. That's what I think we're seeing with Alex Jones, for instance. But I think that's part of the problem that we're seeing in the conservative party as well. Hey, real quick, guys, he just jumped in. It's probably because I sent him the wrong link originally. But Al, if you will, just take a moment and introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about you, your military career, and take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry I'm late. So
okay.
my name is Al. I born and raised in New Mexico, was in the Army for about 21 years. I spent my first 10 years in the infantry with the 101st. Did a deployment to what I guess now is called like the Battle of Ramadi back in 05-06. Deployed 2 more times with the infantry. Went to special after that. Joined, got into 5th group. Did my first 6-7 years with the CRIF or A15. I think it's the SIF, back to the SIF now. I was a sniper team leader, master sniper, and then I ran a couple different programs out in Iraq. Spent quite a significant amount of time in Iraq. Then took over as a free fall team sergeant in 5th group after my time in the CRIF. Ran the free fall detachment for the last couple of years and just retired. So yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Sorry I'm late.
No, you're good, man. Number one, thanks for your service. Thank you for being here. And Matt, back to you, buddy.
They chose to be late.
Yeah,
What's up,
do me a favor,
MOL?
pull up the next screen I shared, please, because I think this is actually very important, and it goes into the propaganda piece.
Real quick,
go ahead.
Notice he said, and then Israel will break those ceasefires again. Though,
correct.
He's blaming all that on Israel, but Israel's not the one that breaks the ceasefires. The ceasefires are consistently broken by. It's literally part of the TTPs for the Houthis, for Hamas, for Hezbollah, for Iranian state proxies. This is what they do. They break ceasefires on purpose. They use them as a pause to refit, rearm, and then they break them. And so he's misrepresenting the actual truth with a blatant lie.
Now, you're 100% right, and we're about to show why. Like it's like your brainwaves and mine are on the same track here. He ended up reposting this on April 9th. I honestly, I don't even know who this guy is. Girl Dad, host of Breaking Points, whoever that gentleman is. I don't know. I don't watch Breaking Points, but I know I've seen them push propaganda before. Yesterday, the vice president said Iran would be stupid to blow up the ceasefire over Lebanon, which we can talk about in a sec if you guys would like. Well, what does it say about the U.S. that we're willing to blow up the global economy over Israel's desire to ethnically cleanse and annex half Lebanon? So I want to put this into perspective for some people. Inside of Lebanon, before the start of Israel's first incursion back in 24 to go chase down Hezbollah, because following October 7th, they fired thousands upon thousands of rockets and ballistic missiles into Israel. And they were worried that listen to this number, please, the 200,000 man force of Hezbollah would have entered Israel. Now, to put that in perspective, that is the same number of Russians that were stacked up on the border outside of Ukraine in 2021 going into 2022 before Russia invaded Ukraine. Inside of Lebanon, the Lebanese military consists of about 80,000 in total, active, reserve, paramilitary, 80,000. Their air force is pretty much non-existent. Hezbollah is actually stronger inside of Lebanon. And that guy that we just had up on the screen, Mario Knopfel, the last time I did an interview with him, he brought up Israel trying to push into Lebanon and take land. It's important to understand, number one, that the ceasefire isn't with Lebanon. The ceasefire is with Hezbollah inside of southern Lebanon, which is a radical Islamic terror organization, is the largest non-state terror organization in the world. It's heavily supported by the IRGC. The IRGC just came out the other day and stated that the IRGC and Hezbollah were one, the same entity. And that is the first time in modern history that they've actually done that. So when Israel agreed to a ceasefire, it wasn't with Hezbollah. They just agreed to stop shooting. Excuse me, it wasn't with Lebanon. They just agreed to stop shooting at Hezbollah unless Hezbollah came off after them. Now, the interesting thing about this post, which I find shocking that he shared, is that it says that they were going to ethnically cleanse and annex half of southern Lebanon. And so we have to ask ourselves, why is that? Why is that? Well, one, because of the thousands of rockets, and you guys are about to see some of this crap, and what it is exactly, for those of you that haven't seen this before, what it is exactly that Hezbollah is capable of. Not only do they have drones that are capable of firing air-to-ground munitions, not only do they have fiber optic drones, not only do they have anti-tank guided missiles, not only do they have this massive military force, they have a tunnel structure inside southern Lebanon that would make Gaza look like Chuck E. Cheese. I mean, these things are massive. They look like they were out of like the VC, man. You go inside, they have bathrooms, they have rooms, they've got like multi-story areas. They've got all of this crap built in there. There was a video that I was trying to find, but I couldn't find it, that has a ballistic missile that they had actually built a house around, that they had literally walled it in, and they just released this thing the other day. Like these are videos that Hezbollah actually ends up releasing. So the fact that they're sitting here talking about Israel trying to annex half of Gaza, or I'm sorry, annex, like half of freaking Lebanon is garbage. We can go back to a ceasefire agreement of November of 2024 in which Hezbollah was supposed to move north of the Litani River in accordance with UNSCR 1701 that got signed decades ago. And Hezbollah has been in violation of that ever since then. And the Lebanese government can't control them because Hezbollah also has members within the Lebanese parliament. And so when the United States on Thursday is going to make a deal with the Lebanese government to get rid of Hezbollah, you have to understand that that's not going to be accomplished without a joint operation with Israel, because they're not strong enough to do so. They just quite literally can't do it. Israel holding this border prevents an additional October 7th. No. That's the purpose of that.
What's
Anybody
up,
else,
Josh?
like,
See,
have
if you don't know all
Yeah,
that,
you know what I
just
find
believe what
interesting
you
about
fucking
all
told.
these guys that are bashing Israel and everything is none of them have been to Israel during this conflict. And I was there 2 days after October 7th and stayed there for about 8 months so far during this war. And I've been up on the northern border. And when you go to Kiryat Shimona and you look right up at the side of the hill right there, and in seconds, missiles are coming down and impacting in the parking lot where you're standing, you get a sense for why Israel feels like they need to take land inside Lebanon, because they won't stop firing missiles at them. And they've got to do something to make their people safe. They had 60,000 people driven out of the north of Israel that stayed in hotels for more than a year all across the country, paid for by the government of Israel. And so they're trying to take care of their people, but that's not a good long-term solution. The kids couldn't go to school. It was just a mess. And so it's always kind of amusing to me when you hear people like Joe Kent, like Scott Ritter, like Colonel McGregor, people like that, who just say stuff about Israel and they have no idea what they're talking about because they haven't been there.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's all like 98% of what they say is just verifiably false. All you got to do, and this is the thing that kind of that Chase touched on earlier, and we've talked about before. Like these anti-Israeli tropes, they're easy to sell because they're simple and easy. It's easy to say, oh, Israel controls the U.S. Oh, Israel controls Trump. It's harder to break it down and like show people why that's not true. And like it takes time, it takes effort. While they're just saying the tropes, and those get repeated 1,000 million times around the internet, and now everybody believes it because they've heard it so much. And by the way, they've heard it from people they trust, like guys with green berets that shouldn't be even talking about it because they don't know what they're talking about at all, and amongst other things. So that's the problem that we're seeing with this, is that the tropes and the misinformation, the propaganda is easy to sell, and the truth takes a much longer explanation, so people tune out.
It's not near as sexy.
It's not.
No.
And nobody wants southern Lebanon anyway. Like, have anybody, like, whoever's been there to see, like, you didn't want, Chuck, you don't want a house there, do you? Like, no.
I've been in southern Lebanon. I came closer to dying in southern Lebanon than I have in any war zone in the world, because I accidentally tried to drive into Ain al-Hilwa, the Palestinian refugee camp near Sidon. And that is not a good thing for an American to try to do. Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful land. The people are nice, except for the Hezbollah ones. I know people from there, and one of my cameramen was actually from southern Lebanon, and the Lebanese are great people. But the influence of Iran has so poisoned the southern part of Lebanon that they're going to have to clear it out. And look, Israel's not going in there and just wholesale knocking down every building or anything like that. If a building is determined to be a legitimate military target because it contains weapons, or it's a bunker, or it's a tunnel entrance, or it's a headquarters or something like that, their policy has always been that building is going away. And what they found when they went into Gaza is that pretty much every building in Gaza was a military, in some way. Well, they're finding the same thing in southern Lebanon, and so they're turning southern Lebanon into the same sort of wasteland. And it's sad.
Can I put this video up behind you while you're talking, because it shows exactly what you're talking about.
Okay,
it's a cruise missile.
There are a bunch of Maronite Christians, Christian villages in southern Lebanon, and those people have told me, we wish we could be part of Israel, because the Maronites that live in northern Israel have much better lives than we do in southern Lebanon. And it has nothing to do with the geography. It has to do with the politics and, of course, the influence of these terrorists that have taken over.
Yeah. Hezbollah has completely destroyed Lebanon. I mean, they only officially have, 13 seats in parliament, but like they're greater, I think they have upwards of like 50 to 60 seats total where they control the parliament. And talk to anybody in Lebanese, they're supposed to have they do have Christian president, but like Hezbollah has like systematically destroyed Lebanon. If you talk to any moderate Lebanese anywhere, that they completely agree that Iran has ruined their country, Hezbollah has ruined their country, but there's just not anybody could do about it. A lot of the people in Lebanon, and granted, I don't have a whole hell of a lot of time in Lebanon, they dislike Iran. They can't stand Iran. And, generally the same feeling is that's how it is in Iraq as well. The civilian population in Iraq, they can't stand Iran. They hate Hezbollah specifically and all the other militias. It's nothing but problems. So yeah, it's just, they can't stand it. They would prefer to Israel to come in and do their thing.
It makes you want to ask Joe Kent, well, what would you do if there were tens of thousands of missiles and rockets raining down on your city from the neighboring, country? What would you want? What would your suggestion be?
Unfortunately, I don't think no amount of proof that the IDF or we would prove to show like what exactly Hezbollah is doing, how much they're shooting at Israel. I don't think any amount of proof. We could show that they have a legit nuclear weapon inside of Lebanon right now shooting into Iran, and nobody would believe it. They would just, the Jews. It's pretty absurd that, it's unfortunate.
And you really have to be there. You have to go and see it and feel it for yourself.
Yeah. Real quick, man, I want to play this video. They kind of we have an Iranian official completely laying the cards on the table that really highlights the things that you were talking about earlier as well.
I know this video.
Yeah, it's a good one.
شما میگید هدف ساخت بمب بوده هدف کی این بوده؟ افراد خاصی یا
کل نظام یا همه اونایی که این فعالیت رو شروع کردن واقعا هدف ساخت بمب بود.
می‌خواستن استفادهش کنن.
بله. نه حالا بسازیم که بترسونیم.
یعنی فقط صرفاً
بترسونیم
برای یه چیز بازدارنده.
آیه قرآن میگه ترهبون به عدو الله. برای که بترسونیم.
شما میگید اون کار خوب بوده.
اون کاری که شروع کرده بودیم و دیگه می‌خواستیم کار خب ببین شما اگه می‌تونستیم اینو حفظش کنیم و بمب آزمایش می‌کردیم کار تموم شده بود. مثل در پاکستان
حالا مثلا همین پاکستان یا کره شمالی اینا که دارن میگه اوضاع خوبی دارن.
خب بالاخره روشون حساب میکنن دیگه.
حالا رو ایران هم حساب میکنن بدون بمب.
اون به خاطر چیزای دیگه حساب میکنن. اگر بمب بود بیشتر حساب میکردن.
شما میگید در مجبور اگه داشتین چیز بدی نبود. حالا استفاده
ممکنه ما که شروع کردیم بعد آخرش
حالا اینه که شما میگید میگم بعد ما تا حالا رسمی خیلی نشدیم کسی این صحبت ها رو کنه. اینا که شما میگید تبعاتی نداره مثلا مذاکرات و اینا به عنوان بالاخره کسی که
ما توجه نداره.
ما خارجی بالاخره پیدا میکنن نکای نداره.
ما که مسئولیتی نداریم. ما طرف خودمون داریم.
شما یه جا گفته که فقهیش اینه که استفاده کنید حرامه داشته باشید که حرام
یه توجیهیه، یعنی بعضی حتی از نظر فقهی میگن آقا آیه قرآن میگه که ترهبون به عدو ما بترسونیم ولی خب استفاده نکنیم. از این نظر میگم میتونیم بسازیم. خب ولی خب حالا الان نظر مقام رهبری این است که اصلا ساختنش حرامه. این که
کلا از بی حرامه.
And then he goes on to say that once they started, that was their intent.
ببین ما اول که وارد این فعالیت هسته شدیم واقعا هدفمون ساخت بمب.
And they weren't going to stop. And that's what they're going to continue to do. So, I mean, right there from an Iranian official, you can see that's what they're doing, folks. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. You know, I almost got to play this one as well. Because
What's up?
You know, he has stated before that there's no evidence that they were trying to obtain that, bomb, that they were trying to get things done. But it is probably one of the most absurd things. I want to stop sharing a screen and share a particular one with you guys.
Joe Kent was saying that.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
correct. I also want to share this.
Okay.
Because this is, if there's one thing that shows absolute bias, it's going to be this.
Yeah, why would they enrich?
And this was,
they're not trying to go nuclear. Why in the fuck would they enrich the uranium to start with? I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. But during the beginning of all this, I didn't think that they were trying to have a nuclear weapon. But the further that I watch, and I'm just kind of, I mean,
the interview that we did with him, a week ago, where we had asked him specifically about what the hell happened inside Syria. Why is al-Jolani in there, right? And I don't think anybody on this panel agrees with Trump putting al-Jolani in charge of Syria. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct.
Right. So let's let this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He held severed heads in his hands, like on camera. Like, what are we talking about?
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about how that happened. Let's listen to Joe Kent and have him explain it. Question for you on al-Jolani, if you don't mind. Sure. Do you have time for this one? Because this is something that I know everybody on the panel is pretty pissed off about.
Near and dear to my heart, yeah.
Why?
Well, man, I wish I could tell you the exact reason why. This was something we debated pretty heavily. I think the Turks did a good job, and the Gulf Arabs did a good job of convincing the president that, hey, this was going to be a great idea. Just sort of let this happen. Let's acknowledge Jolani. And so now we're in bed with the guy who was hand selected by Zawahiri in Al Qaeda, and his coalition is made up of guys that are even more hardcore than him.
You've talked a lot about the Israeli influence on the United States government. I haven't heard you mention the Turks, who I hate, by the way. I have my own hate against the Turks. But how come I haven't heard you talk about this before? Because it seems that the Turks' influence on the president, putting a terrorist in charge of another country, seems to be a much greater national security concern with what that man is capable of.
Well, the Turks just don't have the influence the Israelis do. Are
you freaking kidding me? The Turks don't have the influence that the Israelis do.
Wow.
Well,
they got the most profound terrorist of all time in charge of Syria, a country that has chemical weapons factories. And he chooses to complain about Israel. Now, here's my issue. If you're going to complain about foreign influence, how about you complain about all of it? I don't like foreign influence any more than anybody else on this panel, probably. But for the love of God, every vet that fought inside of Iraq, which I'm pretty sure, Chuck, you might be, I don't know, Chuck, did you? You're kind of old, man. I don't want to throw it out there.
I have 15 trips to Iraq. I spent a couple of years there during the war, but not as a soldier, as a journalist.
Exactly.
I just get paid better to get shot at nowadays.
Exactly. I don't think anybody on this panel wanted Jolani in charge of Syria, particularly a country.
I've been shot at by Jolani's men.
Bingo. Thank you.
This year.
Thank you. Thank you. So
he said this.
Why hasn't he complained about that? If there was ever something that throws out your bias, to me, that's it. And I think we've driven into the ground enough, Joe Kent and his Israeli bias and how it just kind of is not founded, in my opinion, at all. And I want to make sure that, we have a good transition in the Charlie Kirk atmosphere here.
Yeah, I would like to make it. I would like to make a little comment about. I think, and I don't know if I'm right or not. Like putting Jelani in there, I think that it was more of, I guess so. So like, I think Jelani was a Sunni dude, and I think they're like, oh, anything to not have the old Shia in there that's going to have influence by Iran. Maybe that might have been their thought process. I have no idea. Picking HTS or even supporting HTS is just absolutely bananas to me. And then going back to that last video that you played, and one thing that really stuck out to me, and that like I think a lot of people don't really understand, it's that a lot of people have been saying that the reason why Iran hates us, the reason why the Arabs hate us, the reason why the Muslims hate us is because of what we're doing in the Middle East, why we're in the Middle East, that we're supporting Israel, and that's why they hate us. And that's just fundamentally incorrect. That I think the very first time that we fought, Islam in the area, it was in the late 1700s, and they literally told us, I think the quote exactly was, that you guys are infidels. I could pull it back up real quick it was the first Barbary War. I think there's 3 total, and it's because we are non-believers they hate us. And specifically, I don't remember who the Iranian or the IRGC commander's name was. He quoted Quran 8:12, and he's they will strike fear in the hearts of the non-believers, and that's us. It has nothing to do with how much we support Israel. It's just they hate us just because of who we are as kafir. That it's a theological thing. It's not an Israel thing. It's nothing more that is down to their very core doctrine. Obviously, not all Muslims are bad. Some of my favorite human beings in the world are Iraqi special forces. They're probably the best fighters in the Middle East, in my opinion. But it is just down to their core doctrine that is why they're hating us. That is why they're fighting us. That is why we got to get rid of this radical Shia regime that they are causing every single one of the problems in the Middle East. And it's just right now, Israel's the only one, willing to do anything, and we have to back them, I think.
Well, and that's the thing, folks. They're always going to give a reason. Like they're always going to justify their actions. If we weren't supporting Israel, it'd be something else. The fact is they don't like the West. They don't like the non-believers. Iran is a terrorist, homicidal, suicidal regime that wants to conquer the world. And look, there's lots of countries, whether we're talking about China, Russia, Israel, Iran, and many others that would like to see the United States fall. And they have all of their own justifications. And if they didn't have the one that they're using now, they'd replace it with something else. That's just a fact. And you got to quit buying into the propaganda.
Yeah. So a quote from Jefferson and Adams after one of the Barbary Wars, because we didn't know why they attacked us. And this is a quote from Jefferson. He says, "It was founded on the laws of the prophet, and it was written in the Quran that their authority, that we were sinners, and that it is their right and duty to make war upon us. Wherever that we go or we're found, and they're going to make slaves and take us as prisoners." It was just because we were non-believers that they were fighting us. And this is back in the 1780s, 1800s.
They'd kill him.
Israel didn't fucking exist back then. So, that excuse doesn't really hold weight when you look at the vast history of our issues with, Shia Muslims, or not Shia, I would just say, Sharia law, as far as like a vast majority
Radical
of
Islam.
countries. 100%. Yeah.
Right.
Well, they like to pretend that we went to all these wars for Israel in the Middle East. Israel has little to no, they have some other stuff in Afghanistan, but they don't have aspirations for anything going on in Afghanistan. And the only reason they want to know anything about Afghanistan at all is just to make sure that they're not going to get attacked by them, just like everyone else in the world should be worried, at some point, just like we were worried. But when we were going into Iraq, the government and the Israeli prime minister and the IDF leadership and the Mossad leadership did not want us to go into Iraq. They wanted us to go into Iran. So if we were beholden to them, then we would have not to Iraq. We would have went into Iran back in 2003. So all of these, they have all these talking points, and none of them are actually realistic. And then they always show that one video of Bibi going to Congress back in 2002 when he wasn't in government at all. And they're like, well, Bibi wanted it. And I'm like, well, that would be like me showing you a video of Bill Clinton saying something in, 2016 and acting like he was in charge of the government at the time. Right.
And that was actually after the decision was made to go into Iraq. That was after the decision. He was just showing support.
Right.
So he wasn't there, trying to force
Right.
him to do it.
Oh, it was already completely, the decision was made 100%. And the United States told Israel that they were not going into Iraq whatsoever. Like they weren't going to be involved in any way because they didn't want to stir up any other stuff in the area. So then when people are like, well, why wasn't Israel a part of the coalition forces there? I'm like, well, because we told them they weren't allowed to. Like, that's why. Yep. And anybody who's been to Iraq and anybody who's been part of like the Siege of Sodef chain or anything that knows what was going on there understands that too.
Well, I remember Iraqis walking up to me with videos of the Holocaust, literally showing Jews being escorted into the gas chamber, showing them on their old flip phones, being like, Jews dead, good, you know, and they laugh about it. And so to sit back and pretend like introducing Israel into the Iraq war would have somehow turned the tide on everything or would have been a good idea. It would have caused more jihad. It would have caused more insurgents. It would have just made the matter worse. And that is primarily the reason why we told them, no, you're not doing this.
Yeah, and look, this goes back thousands of years, folks. This is literally in the Bible. This is biblical level hatred between Arabs and Jews, and ultimately later on Muslims. It is philosophical. It is theocratic, and the same thing goes with us. Like they may hate the Jews just a little bit more than they do Westerners, but it's not much. And it goes back thousands of years, and you can come up with all the different reasons of why they hate the Jews, and then you get into some of the other globalist issues that we're going to talk a little bit more about. What else you got on that, Matt?
Oh, well, I want to transition because I can rant on this forever. So I've got a nice transition video for you guys, working our way up over into the Charlie Kirk incident.
Sweet.
Because I know this is near and dear to a lot of people's heart. This was part of the interview that we did with Joe Kent. It most certainly seemed, after he first dropped his unprofessional letter of resignation, that there was a lot of intelligence that they had on the Charlie Kirk assassination.
I'm
and the way
curious
it
about
was
this for
framed,
sure.
a lot of people actually thought that Dan Bongino and Kash Patel had basically shut down what Joe Kent was doing because Joe was investigating Israel in conjunction with the Charlie Kirk assassination. And we specifically asked him about that during this interview. And what he said was freaking shocking. What we determined was that it was basically a fraction of a lead that didn't really turn into anything at all. And so I'd like to play that video for those at home to show that it was a massive nothing burger.
Do you suspect foreign influence to be involved in that? And if so, who and why?
Specifically what country, I don't know. I know in the terms of Charlie Kirk, we had more foreign leads. When I say foreign leads, I just mean it could be a person, it could be, an entity. We had more to look into, and we were stopped from doing that at the NCTC level.
Yeah. So, the Charlie Kirk incident is very interesting, and I don't even want to overshadow what took place at Mar-a-Lago because that one's extremely interesting. With where he was traveling and what he was doing, prior to, and it was apparent to me, anyways, that the guy likely got recruited by the FSB and didn't even know it. With Charlie Kirk, and you talk about having the other leads and stuff, and that you were not allowed to look into them. Is that an actual function of the NCTC?
Yeah, anytime there's a terrorist attack in America, in the U.S., obviously the FBI has lead. Charlie was an American citizen, but we look at any of the potential foreign ties to that terrorist attack. So running down foreign leads, that's very much within NCTC's wheelhouse.
Did the FBI pass any foreign leads off to you? Because Dan Bongino claims that they ran everything down and basically says you're full of it. Did they pass leads off to you, and then you were told do not investigate those leads further? Or can you even come out with it? I understand there's a trial going on top of potential classified stuff. So I'm just trying to speak very broad here.
Yeah, very broadly, the FBI did pass us some stuff. They requested us to do work, which is completely normal. We did that. We completed it. We had more. There was more leads that came from that work that we did that I wanted to continue to look into. And then there was other leads that we had developed on our own that I wanted to continue to look into. Again, the FBI came and said, "Hey, you're done. There's nothing else for you guys to look into." And because Charlie is an American citizen and the attack happened in America, that kind of killed our end of the investigation.
Right. At that point, the Bureau's taking the lead. And for those that don't know, inside of the United States of America, the Bureau does have the lead when it comes to, counterterrorism and protection of the homeland. For the most part, they've got the broadest
scope. And then, obviously with the criminal investigation, for that matter, they were taking the lead on that as well.
So I want to pause it right there before I get into it further, because the fact that it is a criminal investigation and he is continuing to frame it as an attack.
Yeah.
So it is a criminal investigation. It is a murder investigation, and he keeps framing it as an attack. Now, even in a criminal investigation, the FBI is of lead because this particular one ended up crossing state lines, and you've got internet stuff and all of that crap that ends up going on it. So the FBI is going to take it over. But even if it was international and you did having a terrorist attack on America's home soil, the FBI takes lead. NCTC has about 1,000 employees. That's it. And what it is it's a hub for all of the different CT intel organizations to come together. And the NCTC takes that information and they provide a common operational picture. And in cases like this, when they're given information, they're given leads, they're there in a supporting role. And that's very important to understand. And I don't think one that has actually been talked about, because the way he frames it is that they were investigating and they got shut down by the Bureau.
Yeah,
that's not how
why
it works.
did he
The
do
Bureau's
that?
up here. NCTC is being asked to screen information, much like on a state level, you end up having their own, Center for Bureau Investigations, right? Depending on where it is, right? So you got a CBI, with, whatever state it is that you're in. That's kind of the overall role of the NCTC, where they're taking all of the intel and bringing it together.
That's fucked
the
up,
FBI determined it was a nothing burger and shut him down. And they even pulled him into the investigation and passed off intelligence, and they determined that nothing came out of it. And I think that's very important to lay out, because that's not how it was framed.
No, because he damn sure framed it as
there was
the
leads.
FBI shut him down and just wouldn't let him look into it. That is fucking wild.
That likely pointed to a foreign entity, which I'm about to ask him about in a second. He can't give a region. He can't give a nation. He can't even give, nothing. Nothing.
Well, to add to that, and real quick, folks, I see there's a lot of super chats going on over there, folks. We will get to your
I'm gonna
super
tell you
chats
what's
toward
going
the end.
on. It sounds like Joe's getting paid very handsomely to go around all these podcasts, probably $20,000 or $30,000 a clip. And the more he can get, he's made $200,000 in a month on top of whatever else he had coming in. That's fucked up.
And maybe if we come to a pause, we'll try to take some. But the other part of that too is the NCTC does not develop intelligence. Like if they get something that they find interesting, they have to go to number one, they're handing it off to somebody that can investigate it. They're sharing that information, and or they're going back to that entity. Let's say they got information from the DIA, the CIA, or whatever else. It's like, hey, this is really interesting. This could be tied to something else. Like they're not the ones going out there doing any investigatory. They have no investigatory authority whatsoever. They're not developing.
Not according to Joe.
Joe
claims they do.
They don't. They're not out there developing intelligence. They're not out there talking to sources. They're not doing any of these things. And to pretend that he is, when he's at nothing but a fusion center, and really what he is he manages a fusion center. I'm sure he has access to it and can look at whatever he wants to. But it's just like a cop on the street.
That's crazy.
They take this case and they say, hey, they take their case to the prosecutor and like, hey, this guy's a bad guy. Here you go. You hand it off to the person that can decide whether or not to action that. And they're like, hey, look, there's nothing here. Like we're doing other things. Like it's not his decision of whether or not that particular element is investigated further.
Bingo.
Was there actual, I understand that you said lead, but would that lead have tied directly into what was going on, or was it just one of those head scratcher moments? Like, was it like beyond reasonable suspicion for this lead, or was it kind of like, yeah, that's really interesting, we need to probably develop that?
It was places where I felt like we needed to do more due diligence to say we completely did our job. And you and probably a lot of the folks on here who have done investigations or been in intelligence, it's a game of you get 100 leads and 99 of them are just like total crap, but one of them is good. So, to go back and say this one or that one, I don't really know. But to me and from where my team was, felt like we had more due diligence to do.
It's garbage.
Due diligence on what?
Good question.
He's not investigative. They don't like due diligence on what, bro? What are you trying to do here?
He's got a serious case of main character syndrome. Like he thinks he should. this is worth repeating though. Look, you have the DIA, the CIA, the FBI, you have all of DOD, you have the Pentagon feeding intelligence information to the president. All of these are people that are in the decision-making process or giving information to the president that decides on whether or not we should start launching missiles at Iran. The one person that's not in that decision-making process, whose sole job is to make sure that he prevents terrorist attacks inside the United States, is Joe Kent. And the problem here is that he's pissed off that he's not in on the decision-making process. You got 10,000 people whose voices are heard and contribute to the decision that President Trump makes. Joe Kent wasn't one of them. And so what he had to do is throw a tantrum, give one of the most unbelievable and disgusting resignations publicly instead of actually just doing it privately like we should. And then on top of that, he thumbed his nose at the president, saying in his resignation that he posted on X that he was being controlled by another state, which is, I found it disgusting on his face. And this is a guy, like, I'm a guy that loved Joe Kent, big fan of Joe Kent. All of those things until recently and until that resignation. And then to find out that within a couple of hours of posting that, he was already on a plane and at Tucker Carlson, spent the entire night with Tucker, as they stated, and then the following day, he gives this interview and provides nothing. Again, you know, one of the, like, all he's talking about is the secret knowledge that he can't talk about because he doesn't have it, and that, you know, we have all these gatekeepers around Trump that are controlling him by with through Israel. It's embarrassing, to be honest with you. It's just like you said, Matt.
MOL, if you're still
IBM,
Smart Mouth, if you're still in here,
this would be so
or Info Warriors,
unprofessional
I can't remember.
that it's hard to believe that he was
in
in the military, and that's not taken away from anything that he's
appreciate
done.
that,
The
'cause I was
sacrifices he's
kinda
made for this
taking
country.
Joe Kent at
It is
face value.
disgusting in spite of all that.
Yeah, I'd agree.
It does not reflect well on him or his service.
No, it doesn't.
And there is
give him an excuse to do it either.
Right.
I think there's a misconception that just because somebody served in the military, just because somebody did great things in the military, that they are beyond reproach and you're not allowed to question them. And I completely and totally disagree with that. Just because you served inside the military, even if your service was honorable, doesn't mean that you can't screw up later on in life, doesn't mean that you are still representing the regiment well, doesn't mean that you get to speak for us either. At all. I don't speak for the regiment. Nobody on this panel does.
Nobody does.
Right.
It's the grifters and the liars and the propagandists that pretend to. And that's what this entire podcast. And the other thing I wanted to say tonight, because I know everybody wants, like, this is the big one. We are definitely going to get into the 30-06 ballistics. I know people are dying for that. One thing that, you know, the reason that we're covering all this stuff, folks, is because everybody in this panel agrees that, look, this is part of a larger psychological operation that's being perpetrated upon the American people. And unfortunately, it's not that sophisticated, but it's been extremely effective, starting with Candace Owens. And real quick, just to let you guys know what is on the line, I'm getting ready to play a clip of Joe Carville, or James Carville.
Oh, shit, he going to talk about my girlfriend.
He's telling you what's going to happen if we lose those midterms. And folks, make no mistake. The intent behind all of this is to take down Trump. And ultimately what I believe this is, and you guys let me know what you think, I think this is the globalist communist agenda that has been repackaged for the right. What they are proposing, it will bring down America. And I'm telling you, folks, if we lose the midterms, we will lose 2028. And if we lose the midterms, we lose 2028, our country will be, the borders will be open. Our country will be flooded by immigrants again. And even with the immigrants that came in during the Biden administration, there's 10 to 20, 30 million immigrants, whatever it is, 20 years from now, when they each have 2 to 3 kids and they're outnumbering everybody on this, we're never going to win another election. You pile that on the fact that they are going to get rid of the filibuster and they are going to pack the Supreme Court. And how do I know that? Because James Carville is going to let you know and tell you exactly what he's going to do.
An election is stolen. They've stolen Supreme Court seats. They've gerrymandered everything that you can. And the only way to fight this is don't run on it. Don't talk about it. Just do it. Just, okay, we got 54 senators and we got 13 court members. Thank you. Goodbye. Because you're not going to get a fair shake any kind of way in this system. 18% of the United States elects 52 senators. Well, You're not going to make it equitable, but you'll make it better by adding Puerto Rico and D.C.
Add Puerto Rico and D.C. We never get the Senate back. We would lose the House if we lose.
I don't know where we missed that, but
Yesterday we hinted at this. Here's the actual audio of James Carville, a respected, not on our side, but on the left. The guy's a lunatic. A respected on the left Democrat consultant advising the Democrats if they win in November to just, quote, they can eat our dust and just go for it. But I want you to listen to the things he's talking about going for. This is insanity. Check this out.
The Democrats win the presidency in both houses of Congress. I think on day one, they should make Puerto Rico, D.C. a state, and they should expand the Supreme Court to 13. Fuck it, eat our dust. They've done everything.
That's the part that we missed at the top of this. But listen to what they're saying, folks. All right, they're going to make Puerto Rico and D.C. a state. Completely. They're trying to turn this. And by the way, once they pack the Supreme Court, we will never win another court case ever. And on top of that, we will never win another election. So just understand they're going to turn the entire United States into California. You think what was bad under Biden, and then you get your little feelings hurt because they're not doing the certain things that you want, or we actually take needed action in Iran, and you just like, oh, screw it, we're better off with the Democrats. Are you freaking retarded? Like, do you not remember when our country is being flooded? And by the way, still is, like, there's 13,000 people that were killed last year, either last year or 2024, by illegal immigrants. And they are voting, folks. We're seeing this all over. So if you want to continue to have stolen elections when the Democrats are in charge, if you want to continue to see fraud like we're seeing in Minnesota, California, and every other blue state in large city, if you want to see your gun rights taken from you, if you want to see just rampant abuse by the DOJ, that is weaponized DOJ against political opponents, then fine. Don't go vote in the midterms. We're going to lose this country, and there's no way of us getting it back, folks. There's no way. Once they do that, we get another 10, 20 million illegal immigrants in, we're fucked. There's no other way to say it. All right. Kind of building on your segue into this. This is about an 18-minute clip, but it covers a lot. And folks, we're talking specifically about Nate from Valhalla. I don't know what's going on with Nate. But what I can tell you is that he is continuing to lie all the time. Like it is just anti-American propaganda. It is not true, the things that he says, and we're going to lay out a couple of issues right there and prove to you that he will just say whatever, and he will say it with such confidence that, it's like, oh yeah, that's believable. And then we're going to go into a little bit more where we're going to tie this all in with Ian Carroll, Candace Owens in this clip. And guys, this is a longer clip. I'll stop and pause it from time to time. But if you have something to say, just kind of give me some hand and arm signals, and I'll pause it.
Damn, not my girlfriend
now,
too.
This was I actually went to go talk with him at Alex Jones, and I thought I was going into a good faith discussion. I thought we're going to have more time. And long story short, he started telling a story, and I was 98% sure that was incorrect, what he was saying. But he said it with such confidence, like, man, he might have, because he's going to go into a news conference. And the news conference was over 6 months ago. And I'd watched it, and I didn't remember him relaying it. I didn't remember it as he relayed it. But we're going to show you that he just will out and out lie and never think twice. And by the way, I'll talk about the text messages I shared with him after this event, just kind of lay the icing on the cake.
Literally saying on film in a press conference, debunking Tyler Robinson's family in and saying, my personal friend who used to be a sheriff for 20 years was the one who used to be Tyler Robinson's Boy Scout leader, recognized him from the picture. He's the one that contacted the family. He's the one that went over to Tyler Robinson's house and convinced Tyler Robinson to turn himself in. The sheriff said that. The same sheriff, Sheriff Nate Brooksby, who was in charge of this whole thing, who has now just resigned yesterday.
All right. And again, folks, I hadn't watched that in 6 months. That I knew that was wrong, but let's talk about what Nate is alleging here. That Sheriff Nate Brooksby debunked that Tyler's family turned him in. Sheriff Brooksby was in charge of this whole thing. It was the retired sheriff that recognized Tyler, the retired sheriff that convinced Tyler to turn himself in. The retired sheriff drove Tyler to sheriff's office, And number 6, he used to be Tyler's Boy Scout leader. These are the things that Nate is saying took place in that press conference. Let's play this forward and we'll see if that's true.
A couple preemptive things. So we are not the lead agency. Our involvement, I describe it as just a really long agency assist. So we're not conducting the investigation. We're not doing interviews. It's going to be focused on how we were able to get Tyler to voluntarily come and turn himself in at my office. That's going to be the scope of it. So since we weren't the lead agency, basically it was about a 2.5 hour waiting in a room, not communicating with the suspect. Our job was not to interview. Our job was just to get him here. He said, "Hey, I know who Charlie Kirk Shooter is. I know the family through religious association, and he's in Washington County now, and we're working on trying to get him to come in voluntarily." During that phone call, some information was provided about Tyler potentially having some suicidal ideations, was en route to a remote area, Washington County. The parents convinced him not to do that, and conveyed that they would stand by him and help him surrender peacefully. So at that within the hour, my friend drove Tyler and his parents to my office, where he was greeted by plainclothes detectives. So
as a doing something good here.
Yeah, outstanding. He deserves full credit. I think that a lot of it's just the community relations, right? So Tyler's family trusted this individual. They knew he was involved in law enforcement at some point, and enough community involvement there that they trusted that they could go to this individual and he could contact me directly, and that we could.
So just to be clear, it was the family that went to the retired friend, not the other way around. The family friend didn't contact them and say, "Hey, I saw Tyler. He wasn't in Boy Scouts together. They were in church together." Like literally every element, he got completely wrong. Every single element of this.
Facilitate a peaceful, calm, relaxed surrender, put it that way, right? Make him comfortable for a couple hours, make sure he has water. No communication until the lead investigators arrive. So no, we're not the lead investigators, so we wouldn't be doing that. And just sat on him until the lead investigators came in.
What time did he get here?
Before 9 p.m.
What did you do once he got here? Did you put him in handcuffs?
No. Made sure he had water, made him comfortable sitting on a couch in an interview room, and just sat on him until the lead investigators came in.
So his parents didn't say anything at all?
No, not again. That was not our place to ask questions. It was just, we have you here. We're in a holding pattern until the lead investigators get here. So that wouldn't be in our wheelhouse. We wouldn't even have attempted to interview any of them. The lead investigators. So by the time they were in town, Tyler was sitting in an interview room with his parents when they arrived. So they were already in.
He was with his parents the entire time, or his parents were with him the entire time.
In this building when the lead investigators arrived.
And how did that handoff go down? Was he handcuffed?
No, he was sitting on a very comfortable couch with a water bottle in his hand, not restrained. He was again cooperative, somber, quiet.
So the parents were in the room, in the interrogation room.
Correct. That was part of the negotiation to get him here, is that the parents would be with him when he arrived.
How would you characterize the interactions between the parents of Tyler and Tyler in the time that
they spinning all this shit, ain't they?
They were together. That was it. I can't point to any emotion or body language or anything to that. They were just with him. So.
Was he recorded in that room?
Nah.
All of our interactions in that room were recorded.
All right, and again, just like I said at the beginning of this, folks, the problem with this is if you're going to sit up there and you're going to use the Green Beret for credibility, and you get things so wrong, either because you're irresponsible or you're just lying to push narratives, which like when it
I hate
happens
it
so
too
often,
smart,
that's kind
man.
of what you
Something tells me you're right.
That is worse than stolen valor.
We
Stolen valor only affects the one individual,
and I still think
there
that she's
making gains off this. When you're putting out stories that have national implications and you're constantly deriding the government, lying about our government and things like that, hold the government accountable. That's good. Lying about our government is not only wrong, all right, it is anti-American, period. And when you are also spewing propaganda directly from the IRGC or whatever other entity that is anti-American, and you're on their side every single time, I have a real problem with that, because I've never seen a Green Beret do that before. Never.
Yeah.
Never.
Yep.
We'll play some more of this.
That goes against everything
this funny green hat stands for.
God, I
All right.
it makes me so mad, dude. Like,
Lord help me.
Like, have any of you ever held your stupid berets up? Like, dude, like, oh my God. That just made me, I don't know that I've been this mad in weeks. Thank you for that.
Well,
I got one behind me. I can grab it.
Wait, there's more. All right. So the other part of this is there's a couple of foundational lies that Candace it has to perpetuate for her entire stick to kind of hold together. One is that Tyler wasn't on campus, and number two, that the texts were fake. And there's a part of this narrative that Ian Carroll, Jesse on Fire, Baron Coleman, and unfortunately Nate Kronakia from VFT have continued to push, and it's a absolute lie. Now, this is a little bit longer of a video, so again, you guys, if you guys have something to say, you want me to pause, feel free to do so. But this is really important that we go through this and understand the lie that's being pushed with this. And also, it completely debunks any idea that Nate is any sort of firearms expert. He's not. He's an 18 Echo. He's a comms guy, just so we're clear on that. But I will show you the receipts as we go along with this.
What the fuck, man?
Oh, yeah. And I want to say shout out to Rage Bronson. I use a bunch of his footage. Make sure you guys go follow his YouTube channel. He's a great guy, good friend of mine. And he is out there putting out some really good content and the truth, by the way.
And according to investigators, the rifle in that photo was a World War I era Mauser 98 chambered in .30-06. The reason this photo was so important is because according to the official story, it's one of the key pieces that was used to identify Tyler by his father, which ultimately led to him turning himself in. If you've been paying attention at all to the Charlie Kirk assassination, you know that it has been overrun with conspiracy theories. One of those theories is that the alleged text messages between Tyler Robinson and his roommate Lance Twiggs are fake, fabricated, made up by the FBI. And the evidence for this, aside from the fact that people just think it sounds weird, is that it directly references Tyler's father identifying the rifle from the leaked photograph put out by the New York Post. The argument here is that the photo released by the New York Post was not actually the rifle. It was a stock photo. Therefore, Tyler Robinson's dad could not have identified the rifle because it's just a stock photo, resulting in those text messages being a complete fabrication. How did we come to the conclusion that the leaked photo from the New York Post was a stock photo and not the actual photo of the alleged rifle used in the assassination? And it's mostly centered around just ignorance of firearms, especially military surplus firearms, and how a World War I era Mauser 98 would eventually come to look how it did in that photo.
All right, so I just want to address this up front because these terms, World War I relic, World War II relic, have been inserted into the lexicon of the discussion around the Tyler Robinson firearm in general, and it is incorrect. The only place in any of the documents that even talk about how old this rifle is the ATF report released by Stephen Crowder. We're going to read it in its entirety in just a few minutes. But I want you to look right here. What it says is the ATF and other law enforcement located an older model imported Mauser 30-06. Later on, they talk about how it is a Mauser M98. All right, that's the model number. Now, where this nonsense of a World War I relic or a World War II relic comes from is people that know nothing about firearms looking up a M98 Mauser. And they will find out real quick that it is designed in 1898. That does not mean that this rifle was from World War I or was from 1898. They have continued to build these rifles new up to this day. You can still, here's a rifle right here, brand new, that I can import from Mauser, and I can get it in 30-06. We do not even know that if this was a converted military surplus, although that has become kind of assumed. And I'm fine with that. It could be a World War I rifle. There's lots of World War I rifles that are still being shot today that function flawlessly, and by the way, have been updated with a new stock, a different barrel, and all Gucci'd out. People do that all the time. Now, it very well may be a rifle like this. This is a World War II Mauser. It's literally from Germany, Nazi Germany, but I can take this out and shoot it. And by the way, I can switch out the stock, I can switch out the barrel, and it'd be good to go. Another perfect example of this is this rifle right here. This is one of my favorite rifles. It's a Marlin 1895 SBL, chambered in 4570. The cartridge 4570, I don't even know when that was designed. We can look that up, but well before 1895. This rifle was designed in 1895. I bought it brand new just a couple years ago. So if this rifle was found at a crime scene and they said it was, an 1895 Marlin lever action, there'd be morons on the internet going back and saying, oh my God, this is a World War I relic. It couldn't be true. Well, this is a brand new rifle. You've been able to buy an imported Mauser 98 from the 50s, 60s, 70s up to present day. And you've also been able to get extremely cheap military surplus ones from Germany and many other places. So we don't know if it was actually converted, just so we're clear, but people are inserting this term World War I, World War II relic based on the design of it. When it was created, they have no idea what they're talking about. And if they're saying that, they're idiots. Based on the information that we have, it is just as likely and possible that Tyler's grandfather bought that rifle in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s, and it was already chambered in 30-06. It is just as likely
Matter
that he
of fact,
World War II.
I remember hearing them say that it was a World War II rifle like the first hour or two. Now that he's saying that.
Surplus
right away.
And then
That was
actually
one
had it
of the
rechambered
stories
or
right
rebarreled
away.
in 30-06. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But that is the information we have, and people are inserting those terms specifically to make this sound like it's some crazy thing. There's no way that he'd be using some, relic from World War I or World War II. But people that aren't familiar with firearms, if you tell them, hey, that's a World War I relic, and like, hey, go shoot that, they're like, I'm not shooting this. There's no way that this rifle could be good. Plenty of them out there, and plenty of original World War I, World War II rifles that have been updated and accessorized and look like modern day rifles. We see it all the time in our shop. So keep that in mind as we continue on this discussion.
How they massacred my boy. These are both World War I era British Enfield rifles. However, this one's been circumcised. Why would they do that? This is called a sporterized rifle.
Let's get into this theory that the photo of the alleged rifle that was published by the New York Post somehow isn't the actual rifle. It's just a stuff.
They are weird.
Who started
about it,
this?
but
When
this
did it start?
on,
Is it
it's
still
already out
going?
there.
Are people still talking about this? And what's their evidence that it's just a stock photo?
Weird scope placement.
You can't point it.
And interestingly, the New York
Which
Post
is crazy,
article
but
that published this photo on September
That's
11th, titled
about it.
Imported Mauser Rifle Used in Charlie Kirk Assassination Recovered in Wood, sources say. That article's gone, which is kind of weird.
All right. So that article's not gone. You can still go to that article. I'm going to show it to you in just a second. But this is even more relevant because just today, Candace Owens posted this. Are you even following the case, Blake Neff? Yes, it was both widely and incorrectly reported that Tyler Robinson's father recognized the rifle shown in the media. Tyler Robinson's FedSlop text messages were used to further that lie. All right, so let's talk about a timeline here, because this is the timeline. This is the article that Ian Carroll just said that doesn't exist anymore. Of course, I went back too far.
Damn.
All right, so this is the original article. You can still go there today. And it was published September 11th, 2025 at 11:21 a.m. At 11:21 a.m. Eastern time. So that is 9:21 at Mountain Time or Utah time. So just be clear, this is the next day. And then this is the first time that we actually see the photo of this rifle. In this article right here, you come down, and right here we have the original photo of this rifle. This is not a stock photo, folks. This is the rifle, but there's more to it than that.
It's like
And
a crime
right
scene
here,
photo.
there's a bolt action rifle recovered near the scene where Charlie Kirk was fatally shot, seen in a photo obtained by the New York Post.
But why is she doing that?
All right. And now we have an even earlier source where even if Tyler's father didn't see that, and we're going to read the charging documents in just a second. Louder with Crowder, Stephen Crowder posted this, which was actually the a leaked ATF memo. And look at the time, 8:35 a.m., September 11th. So that's 6, and this is Eastern time, because I pulled up this post on my computer. It was showing Eastern time. All right, so this is before I screenshot it. So this is 6:35 a.m., September 11th, 2025. And let's read what he actually states. He retypes this out.
Yeah, now I get that. They're saying that it was so fucked up that they couldn't determine where it came from. Not that it wasn't the bullet that came out of the gun, but it was just so destroyed, which happens, you know. But I don't understand why she's too smart to make that mistake. So there's something there.
This morning, my team received an email from the officer at the ATF. The email included a
She's
screenshot
no
of what
idiot,
appeared to be
by
an
no
internal
means.
message describing a weapon and cartridges located by an ATF and other law enforcement near the scene of the Charlie Kirk shooting at Utah Valley State University. Quote, on September 10th, 2025, approximately 12:24 p.m., conservative political influencer Charlie Kirk was shot and killed at the Utah Valley University in Orem. Mr. Kirk was speaking at the university as part of the American Comeback Tour, multiple SLC ones. We get down to the most important part. The ATF and other law enforcement located an older model imported 30-06. Now, if I'm seeing these pictures on the screen and it looks like my son, and then on top of that, I see a Mauser 30, I don't need a picture of it. At that point, I'm wondering where my gun is.
Right.
And the photo of the gun that circulated isn't even the actual rifle. The photo of the gun that circulated is a other photo that the New York Post just pulled off the internet, because the gun itself is an old World War I relic that perfectly ties Tyler Robinson to the scene of the crime.
So the stock photo theory seems to have started from John Cullen and Ian Carroll. On September 16th, John Cullen posted a dead link to a New York Post article that is still up to this day. And just to point out, not only did the New York Post publish that photo in the September 11th article, but they published it again in September 12th. And again on September 16th. And again as recent as March 31st.
Wow.
The caption continues to allege it is the rifle that Tyler Robinson used. Not that it's a...
And here's directly from the charging documents, folks. Robinson's fathers reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, this is September 11th, the evening of September 11th, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift. So this is the evening of September 11th that was originally posted at 11 a.m. Eastern time and 8 a.m. Eastern time. So he had information about that rifle. Everybody in Utah is paying attention to it. You better believe he saw the pictures of it. Now what's interesting is we go over to the text messages that he said and that he sent. And Robinson says, I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back the grandpa's rifle. I don't even know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in the bush where I changed outfits, didn't have the ability of time to get it. It also says, he also states, where's his father? His father basically is asking him for pictures of it. Oh, there we go. My dad wants photos of the rifle. He says grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle and it is very unique. He's calling me right now. I'm not answering.
Stock photo, not that they just took it off of the internet somewhere, that it is the alleged rifle used by Tyler Robinson to assassinate Charlie Kirk.
To Bronson's question real quick.
All right, we're back to Nate. Pay attention. This gets wild.
Can you put a modern composite stock on a World War I era Mauser? I have no fucking idea, dude. Probably not, because like even my Browning right here is wood, and I don't know if there's any way you could do that. Maybe you could, but
you're a Green Beret and you don't know whether or not you can change out a wooden stock. Look, this is a actual German Mauser. It's made in 1940. The stamp is right there. Oh, and by the way, on this side right here, we have a German military logo actually is the eagle and the swastika right there. So this is a genuine 1940. I still wouldn't even call it a relic. This is still, we could take this out and shoot it right now. I looked this over. Everything looks like it functions just perfectly. But right here, people, and this is true on almost every rifle for sure, is we have 2 action screws. All we got to do is remove these action screws and the barreled action will come right out. And I can take this exact action right now and put it into a chassis or a stock and make it look just like this. And then what I can do is I can actually change out this barrel very easily to 30-06 and it will work. And by the way, another thing that I've heard multiple times is that 30-06 won't fit in the magazine of a 8mm Mauser. I don't even know what you people are talking about. Here we have 30-06. 1, 2, 3, fits in the magazine. That's why these were so popular to convert from 8mm Mauser to 30-06. It's a quick barrel change. The bolt works. The bolt face is all the same. And for someone that doesn't even know that you can change out a wood stock on every rifle out there just about, I'm sure there's some minor exceptions. For someone to say that and then go on to claim that they're a ballistics and or a firearms expert is absolutely ridiculous and embarrassing. The Nate, you're an 18 Echo. I suggest that you stick to commo because you do not know what you're talking about at all when it comes to firearms or ballistics. And just because you have a Green Beret does not give you credibility or expertise in any one of those topics. I mean, that is no different than anything that Tim Kennedy, Shrek, or anybody else is doing out there. So stick to what you know and quit claiming expertise in something that you clearly do not have. Thanks.
That's the other problem is that 30-06 Ian, that picture.
Well, there is an answer. There's an answer about the photo of the 30-06 that slid under the radar for a lot of people. That photo of the rifle that we were shown.
I heard that was like a leak from someone else.
Well, yeah, it was from New York Post or TMZ. I think it was New York Post. And they came out later and made a statement, but you could tell just from looking at the photo that that is not the actual murder weapon. That's not actually the rifle that the police found.
I'm on board with that.
Yeah, and they said later that they found a stock photo from something else and used it in this as a example of a 30-06.
The effort here to create disinformation around this photo is unbelievable, and it's the reason is it all ties in, and we're going to see Jesse on Fire do the same dumb shit. It's because Ian Carroll, if you're taking firearms advice from Ian Carroll, who is, by the way, he's a felon, convicted felon. I'll show you his record if you'd like. And then the fact that he's explaining to a Green Beret, which blows my mind that this is some relic and that he's buying it. Like, yeah, I totally buy that. I'm going to go ahead and push this narrative too, because, I want to be friends with the pizza boy that doesn't know shit about anything. And by the way, it always leads back to the Jews with Ian. Freaking drives
with both of them.
Yeah.
Come on, be real.
Yep.
Mauser 98 or whatever, but it's not actually the real rifle. But because that rifle has a composite stock, not an old wooden stock.
The rifle that was man, I lost my mind. So because I had seen the I had the 30-06 picture, and then when the FBI released the Grandpappy's old World War I relic, I about threw my shit at the wall. Like the Leonardo DiCaprio when he sees the shit on TV. Wait. That's like how I was like, you fuckers, there's no way. But yeah, then I
to speak such stupidity,
right,
with such confidence is just and the problem is, folks, and the problem that I have, and I think everybody else, and I want to speak for them, the problem that I have with this is that you're doing it under the auspices that you're a Green Beret, and there's millions of people that are going to hear this, going to see this, and they're going to believe you. They're going to believe that you did due diligence on your research. They're going to believe you because you claim to be a firearms and ballistic expert, and you don't even know that you can change out a freaking wooden stock. Like,
that's the worst part. That's the worst part. Anybody that's been into, any if you've ever bought a bolt gun and been like, I want to do something more than just what I did to take it off the shelf, that you can disassemble it. You could throw a different chassis on it, and it's not that freaking hard.
No.
If you've ever tried to clean a bolt gun, if you've had 5 minutes worth of curiosity in your life, and when I wonder how you take it apart and put it back together. I did that crap when I was like 10 years old. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is a grown man that allegedly runs a firearm training institution. Isn't that what he used to do?
I don't know. This is where we are. in life.
I heard that as well. It's like that's not actually the photo. So, but no,
Well,
Bronson,
so,
I have no
Casey,
idea. But
no,
I'm
this-
assuming
that's-
to Ian's
this,
point, that's not.
I appreciate
we're not
the shit out of
assuming
this,
that isn't
bro. I
actually
really
the rifle
do.
that was used.
So his response to my question on whether or not he thinks you can put a modern stock on an old World War I era Mauser 98 was, I don't know, dude, probably not. So he's not sure, but he's kind of sure. And then in the same breath, he's absolutely positive that the photo the New York Post put out is definitely not a World War I era Mauser 98.
Hey guys, I now have the synthetic stock for the Mauser. Here is the original wood stock. I'll be replacing it here. Not doing a how-to, just showing a little before and after and some just first impressions on the stock, and I'll show you the overall look of it. And here it is on the OD green synthetic furniture made by Hogue. It no longer has a distinct Mauser look to it. Switching out between the wood or synthetic furniture is very easy using the 2 screws at the bottom. Did not come with replacements, so those are the original ones I had.
This is a rubber overmold stock for a Mauser 98 military sporter. I'm going to take this out here for you so you can get a better look.
And Ian Carroll's claims here of the New York Post or somebody at the New York Post putting something out about that it was just a stock photo that they found on the internet and it's not. Yeah, that never happened.
This is the only photo of the rifle that has ever been released. And this is not the rifle. And you actually know that just from this photo.
You know it just from the photo, folks. We just showed you a
I
World War I,
did
World War
hear
II
they got
Mauser that was
fucking
changed out by a chick and the dude before him.
But I
But
guess that was
Ian
just
knows.
cardboard
Ian
box
knows just from the photo.
yeah.
You can tell that.
You would know that before the New York Post confirmed that this was just a stock photo, because this rifle obviously has a composite stock made out of some sort of like plastic polymer. It's obviously not a World War I era relic.
Dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it is very
trying to get him to come in voluntarily. During that phone call,
These idiots are lying to you. These idiots are all freaking lying to you. That's what you need to know. Hold on.
One era relic.
Dad wants photos of the rifle.
Yep. Sorry, Chuck. Go ahead.
Yeah. Just let me say one thing. I've got more than 50,000 assets on stock footage websites. I can promise you that that's not a stock photo because the stock agency would not accept such a terrible photo as a stock photo of that weapon. There's no way that's a stock photo.
Yeah, this is what, like, you know what we need. You know what we need for a stock photo that people will buy. What we're going to do is we're going to lay an evidence box on the ground. We're going to put a rifle on it in the middle of the night, and we're going to shine a flashlight. This is going to be a great photo. We're going to want this.
Yeah, right. That's I mean, come on.
It's absolutely preposterous.
Yeah, it's
He says Grandpa
evidence box. Sorry, yeah, it's very clearly an evidence box. It's just, I don't understand these reasoning.
They have to get rid of this idea because the problem for them is they've started off. All of these people have said that the texts are fake, and what this being a real rifle does, and it's going to be seen in court, folks. They're all going to be proven liars. But the reason that they have to attack this particular point is because it confirms that the texts are real between a father and a son, and where Tyler Robinson admits to doing what he did. It is an admission. And by the way, I'm going to read that for you guys just so that we can get this out of the way, because I keep hearing Tyler didn't admit nothing in there. Robinson implied, after they discussed the situation, Robinson implied that he was the shooter and stated he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained there's too much hate and evil, and the guy, Charlie Kirk, spread too much hate. That is an admission by any reasonable. If you said that in front of a 12-person jury, if they are reasonable,
They gonna get
they
avoided
will say
there.
that's an admission. If I asked Matt, why'd you steal my car? And instead of saying, I didn't steal your car, Gary, he says, well, Gary, I liked your car and I needed to get to the liquor store or wherever he's going. That's an admission. It's an admission.
I do have a
wants to
question
know
right
who
here. Sorry. Has anybody in Tyler Robinson's family or inner circle or anybody that I knows him actually has said no, he's innocent? He didn't shoot. Has any near Tyler Robinson actually said no, he's innocent?
They have. Apparently, his grandparents believe that he's innocent and he's being framed. But I mean, that doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
So I also want to add that it's not like we know for a fact that these people are lying. They could just be retards.
Yeah. Well, you're more generous than me.
has what? The feds
He said you're
released
more
a
generous
photo
than
of the
me.
rifle, and it is very unique.
Oh, shit.
He's calling me right now. I'm not answering. Okay. Right there. You see that in plain English. This is the transcript of the supposed conversation between Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs that the feds gave to Newsweek. This is the photo that was released. Okay. This is not a Mauser.
Okay, it 100% is a Mauser. I want you to look at the action. What determines whether or not a gun is a certain type, whether it's a Remington 700 or a Mauser or whatever else, is the action, not the stupid stock. That's like changing the tires on your truck. It's stupid. So we can see that TR's rifle is a Mauser action. You can see the Mauser action right there. You can see a Remington action over there. It 100% is a Mauser. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
The real model is this. It's like this one. Okay. So this is what an actual World War II Mauser looks like. But here's the thing.
All right. So that's like saying this is not a 1965 C10 Chevy. There's no way it's a C10 Chevy, because a real C10 Chevy looks like this over here. That's a 1965 C10 Chevy. This is the logic these freaking morons are using and convincing millions.
It was so old that it was untraceable.
It's not untraceable. The reason he's saying that is because Tyler says, I don't even know if it has a serial number, but it won't trace to me. Not untraceable. They traced it. They traced it right back to him.
Now, they never released a picture of this rifle. They released a picture of this rifle, which looks like every other rando 30-06 on the market. There's like 5, 6, 7 kinds that look just like this. Okay. And so the feds released a photo of the rifle and it's very unique. Okay. Well, where's that picture? Because this is the exact picture that they released. There's nothing unique about this at all. Nothing. And it's also not a World War II.
So there's that video. All right. I've filibustered enough here, but you guys' comments on any of that stuff?
Dude, I'll jump in real quick. So he also confessed 5 different times through 5 different platforms.
Yes.
So that's another thing that people love to gloss over. They love to forget. He left a note under his keyboard. He confessed on a Discord chat, which those chats were proven true, even though Candace Owens tried to say that they were not true. Discord came back and said they were real. There was real chats. He confessed to his parents, to the sheriff, and then he confessed in those text messages. Let me see, what was that? Hold on, I got them right here. So you got one. Yep, you got the note under the keyboard.
Yep.
You got the text messages to Twigs, right? To the furry boyfriend girlfriend thingy. To the Discord group. You got to his family, where once they recognized who he was, and then to the family friend when before the sheriff came up. So that's 5 different times that he confessed to this happening in 5 different platforms to 5 different groups of people.
Yeah, no, I mean, he confessed.
You also forgot to mention the fact that he's on video entering, on video exiting, on video with the rifle in his hand, on video with it shoved down his pant legs, all sorts of things that go into it.
Yep.
I was just talking about just confessions. Just confessions alone. We got 5 confessions. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. 100%.
Yeah. And again, it's really unfortunate that we have a Green Beret pushing this misinformation. And again, using his Green Beret as credibility, alleging that he's a firearms expert when he's clearly not. You got at least 3 snipers on this panel. Look, I do this for a living. I teach long range for a living. We have our own line of custom rifles. I teach ballistics for a living. I know, Al does the same thing. I don't know. Let's take a couple super chats real quick, and then we'll move into ballistics and or anything else that you guys want to cover. But Naked Dad, to one of you guys at 99 cents. Muhammad Jihad gifted a One Speak the Truth membership. Naked Dad did another 99 cents.
Naked Jihad.
Ben Dykes, by the way, great guy. Go follow him as well. Also a veteran. Great show, guys. Salute from Bubblehead. These clowns make money hating America need to be called out. Yep. I agree. Gents, thank you for this. I was getting very concerned. The only way you can be a Green Beret, have a YouTube channel, is badly represent your community while holding a cat and not hairless. Raise hell, praise Dale. I have no idea what that means. It might be an inside joke to some.
Dale Earnhardt, raise hell, praise Dale.
Oh, there you go.
You ain't from the South, are you?
I'm from Texas. Yeah, I am.
Me too, but I didn't know. I actually didn't learn that until I got over here to the other South, like North Carolina area.
The actual South, not Texas is its own South, but the other South, like the American South, is totally different. There's Texas South and then American South. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know it there. It's just my buddies in Tennessee. They're like, they say it all the time. I'm like, all right.
My wife's from Georgia, and she reminds me, she's like, Texas ain't the South. You're not from the South. You're from Mexico. Dirty beaner.
They definitely need them.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Dustin. Appreciate you.
I'll be right
member
back,
over
though.
here. Thank you very much. Iran has zero need to enrich. They can buy enrich for whatever BS excuse they have, like everyone else. UAE is cheaper that way, and there's no non-military use for anything enriched over like 3.5%. So.
Well, Iran does buy enriched uranium from China. They have one operational nuclear power plant. And for that, uranium that they actually get, I'm sorry, not from China, from Russia is where they actually buy it from. So I just want to make that perfectly clear. They're already buying enriched uranium from Russia that they use to fuel their one operational nuclear power plant. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Operational for the time being.
Right.
Exactly.
May not be in 24 hours.
Yeah, in 24 hours, things are going to go wild. We just extradited the leader of the bombing of the passenger plane in Argentina that was hiding in Venezuela to Panama and heading to the U.S. Will the job be finished? I think that's worth talking about because I definitely have what I would like to see with Iran, and I think that's what you're referencing. Jonathan Wilson, member for 28 months. Thank you, buddy. Mario is Lebanese, so a bit of bias there.
Yeah.
Okay. March 18, 2026, Tulsa, as a result of Operation Midnight Hammer, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated. There has been no efforts since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capacity or capability. Fun fact.
What the problem with that one is, though, is that the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, in June of 25, just like 3 days before we bombed them, conducted an inventory and inventoried Iran's enriched uranium at 440 kilograms. Iranian foreign minister came out during the debates with, I'm trying to remember his name, Steve Witkoff. And Steve is quoted saying numerous times this year that the Iranian foreign minister is claiming that they have 460 kilograms of enriched uranium.
Enough for 11 bombs already.
That's an additional 20 kilograms is the point.
Yeah, gotcha.
And so we don't have the amount of intelligence assets on the ground inside of Iran that we need to have made the call as quick as we did.
And what is clear proof of that is us, Israel, and everybody else thought that their ballistic missile capabilities were limited to 2,500 kilometers. And guess what? They were able to shoot
4K, baby.
4,500 kilometers. So there was a clear intelligence gap there. And I guarantee you there's a lot more intelligence gaps all over that place. So
Sarah Adams has talked about that a lot, that our intelligence capabilities inside of Iran are very diminished. And that's why one of the reasons we needed Israel is because they actually have human inside of Iran and we do not.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Fun fact, in July 2025, 100 Iranian bot accounts entered 240,000 posts to stop Trump's nuclear strikes. The IRGC has a cyber command arm that specializes in social media subversion of Americans. And folks, that's what's happening. Look, this is such an easy thing to see. Like, you don't have to get Candace Owens talking directly to Iran or China or whatever else. When any creator post something that they like that is subversive to the United States, they generate a bunch of bots behind it. It gets a bunch of views. They get money indirectly. But the other thing it does is they're like, hey, you know what? I just posted this and I got 5 million views or whatever it is. You've incentivized them and you've indoctrinated them into posting exactly that. Because when they post something else and it doesn't get those views, they're going to go back to that. That's what social media, when all they care about is clicks and views. I don't do this for money. I have a business. I couldn't care less if I have 5 followers or 50 million followers. Doesn't matter to me. You're not going to change the way that I see this. You're not going to change the way that I post. I post what I want, when I want. And I know everybody else on this panel is the exact same way. So that's what's happening. And then it looks organic. And then it's happening with all of her surrogates as well. Ian Carroll, what he does on X is he target designates, and I know everybody's experienced this just about, but I have. What Ian Carroll does, he goes in comments, says something shitty on your post, and the next thing you know, you have 50,000 of these bots talking about, oh, look at a ratio, you got ratio, dude, and it's like, okay, well, he has 1.4 million followers. I have 30,000. I couldn't care if I got a ratio. The truth isn't dictated by democracy. That's not how this works. So
it really doesn't matter if they're getting money from foreign power. They're selling the same product.
Yeah,
that's all there is to it.
100%.
Plus, I love it when they do that to me, dude. Like, yeah, please come here and give me all of your hate engagements, because I'm going to soak them up and I'm just going to drink them down like the leftist tears I used to drink down anyway. Like, it don't matter to me, dude. Like, do you think that you saying words to me on the internet is going to hurt me? That's insane. And then when they try to go to like, they're going to like threaten violence, I'm like, bro, I would rather solve it that way. If we could solve everything through violence, this panel here right now of all these dudes right here, I guarantee you we would choose that path over this other path. But we're forced. Yeah, we're forced to use this path. So you want to take it next level, dude. Well, let's go. I got guns in every room in this house, and we'll see what happens. We'll roll it out.
I've said it 100 times. You come on my property, just know that you're not leaving.
Yeah, it turns out these guys have really just turned into useful idiots for, Russia and Iran. That's all they are.
That's it.
And it's unfortunate to see it play in real time, especially people, that I've really, really respect Joe, and I think he's always been a great dude. He definitely was an awesome Green Beret, and it's really unfortunate to see this actually happen. And X is not it's not real life. I love posting on there because it's just absolute nonsense. Yeah, arguing with people is pretty fun to be on there.
I agree. Don't forget the global ramification of Iran getting a nuke on Israel, because the Pandora's box it will open up if they get away with it. Will be catastrophic. Next would be Russia on Ukraine and China and Taiwan. Look, we cannot allow, and this is one of the things that I voted for Trump on. You can say whatever you want to say that he said about foreign wars and getting involved in new wars or whatever else. The other thing that he said is that he unequivocally will not allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon. One of the reasons I voted for him. And by the way, I think we should have taken Iran, the IRGC, out a long time ago. And the way that I want to see this played out is that, we continue. If they don't come to an agreement, we're going to see what happens in the next 24 hours. If we go kinetic again, what I hope that we're already getting in place is we got truckloads and truckloads of guns, ammunition that's going to be shipped over to all the Iranian people so they can resist and they can overthrow, and then they can dictate their new future. Regardless of what that future involves, it does not involve a nuclear weapon. That's the way because I don't want my kids. You can talk about foreign wars, you can talk about regime change, all these tropes that you guys, these are just talking points. They mean nothing. What does mean something is that when we have a terroristic regime, that if they have a nuclear weapon, they will use it, or they will threaten to use it. And
that's just it. Picture Iran right now. All they have is a ballistic missile program, right? Allegedly, all they have is a ballistic missile program, and they can control the Strait of Hormuz and they can control the Red Sea. Those are two key waterways, and the world is scared to do anything. If they had a nuclear weapon, the amount of things that they could shut down with their proxy organizations and the amount of dominance they would have over the world is insane, because those crazy bastards would use one.
I'm glad to have watched
whether or not they would launch it into a civilized society or not. The fact that they would have it, and the fact that they could wage economic warfare across the world, and China and Russia would benefit from it, by the way, which they do.
Yeah,
China and Russia were the two ships that were allowed to sail through the Red Sea.
Hey, Gary, I put up that map so everybody can see. That's the choke points. Those are the key choke points that matter in the world, and you can see how many of them focus on the Middle East. So you can start to kind of understand from a strategic standpoint of why we are finally going into Iran and doing something about this. Is because of that right there. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more on. So let's see. Hey, look at this. Look at this. See that? So you got the Suez, Bab el-Mandeb, the Strait of Hormuz, and the Strait of Malacca. And those right there, those are your main thoroughfares. And I don't know, we could add it all up, but just the Strait of Hormuz and I think the the Strait of Hormuz alone is 20% of the world's oil and natural gas. And the Suez Canal together, I think they're up there close to like 30 or 40%. So like so much trade goes through there that we haven't been in control of. And then you talk about this trade going through the Strait of Malacca too. This is why we're here, guys. Like this is the thing that everybody's missing from a strategic standpoint. No one wants to look at this war for what it actually is. And I shared this post earlier. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it shows our trade between the trade breakdown of the world from 2000 until today. Let me share this. You see that? This is why we're here. This is why we're finally interdicting Iran, which is a proxy of China and Russia. And this is why Trump is actually putting his foot down finally, because the world has changed that much in 24 years.
Damn.
Yeah, folks. I mean, China's taken over. It's and Iran is part of that. Iran, China, and Russia are our greatest threats. And the other thing that I've talked about before, look, we know that the Middle East is the largest region of unrest. And folks, 90% of that is because of Iran, between Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Quds Force. Like 90% of the problems that we have, October 7th wouldn't have happened without Iran.
Nope.
October 7th wouldn't have happened because the world has changed that much in 24 years.
Yeah. And I've talked about this region of Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Quds Force. Like 90% of the problems that we have, October 7th wouldn't have happened without Iran.
Nope.
October 7th wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Joe Biden giving him all that money. Like,
well, that's another thing too.
Yeah, I think that I believe that we should have been to Iran regardless of, even if there was absolutely no chance of them ever having nuclear weapons, if that wasn't even on the table. We needed to do this in Iran, bottom line, no matter what. They were causing so many significant issues throughout the world, throughout the Middle East, significantly in Iraq, all the way to Israel, and especially with their proxies. We could talk about it all day long, but like
thousands of Americans since in the last 47 years.
100%. They've had a chokehold on the Middle East, and we as a country have been so afraid to do anything. They have killed so many of us. And, even being in Iraq, my last couple of times I was there, they were so afraid of us even mentioning Iran. In high school in 2003, right when we made the decision to invade Iraq. And I remember back then I was like, why in the hell are we going to Iraq? Iran are the people that are causing all the issues. And I was just a dumbass in 2003. And it just expounded, as I think I probably spent like 3 or 4 years in total time in Iraq. And it's just nonstop, Iran is such a significant problem. They're absolutely controlling the governments in Lebanon. They're absolutely in control of the government in Iraq right now. And they're just on a chokehold, and there's nothing we can do about it. And if Iran has a chokehold on the Middle East and all that oil, then that means China technically is the ones with the chokehold on it.
Well, and that's the thing.
Yeah, I appreciate
keep hearing these comparisons between Iraq and Iran. And
I love to
everything
be
they
educated,
sold
man.
you on that you were like, yeah, we should go to Iraq.
I really do. I love to be educated on this. And, I'm so far behind. I'll be the first one to admit I should have been paying attention to this shit a lot sooner in life, but I haven't. And this explains to me.
Come to find out it wasn't
This
true.
explains a lot.
Everything they said about Iraq is 100% verifiably true about Iran. They do have weapons of mass destruction. They are looking to build a nuclear weapon. They are conducting terrorist operations all over the Middle East. And
even if they couldn't hit us,
we just had a person convicted against President Trump by the IRGC. So they are targeting Americans. They have targeted our president. And if we let them go unchecked any further, our kids will be forced to go fight in Iran at a long drawn out war with a nuclear armed Iran. Like we can't.
Marco Rubio specifically said this in 2015, I think it was, saying exactly what he's mirroring what he's saying now. Like they will be untouchable if we let them keep going. And so this war needed to happen. I think the timing, we should have done it a lot sooner. And I think politically it would have been better for us. But yeah, it's just unfortunate that everyone is so against it now, but this needed to happen. Bar none.
Couldn't agree more.
I think you also got to look at the fact that what is directly on the west side and then the east side of Iran. What's on the west side of Iran?
Iraq.
What's on the east side of Iran?
Afghanistan.
Right. All right. So we went to Afghanistan. From a strategic standpoint, maybe you were supposed to go into Iran, but Iran is a very tricky problem set for a ground force invasion. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Our capabilities in 2002, when all this is being planned, 2001, 2002, were a lot different than they are today.
Yeah.
So another thing people don't misunderstand about this is one, the cost of troops to, life, risk, and ammunition would have been a lot higher to go into Iran at that time. So from, I try to look at everything from a strategic level, like a 30,000 foot view of like, why are these things actually happening? I disagree with the initial Iraq invasion, especially for the reasons they said that we did them and all this other stuff. But if you look at it from a strategic standpoint, now you have multiple forward operating bases on either side of Iran, and you can effectively force project your will on Iran at a moment's notice with every military capability that you can think of. And then if you still need it, you can bring aircraft carrier strike groups in to play around as well. So that's the real reason.
We're now controlling the Strait of Hormuz with 1/10 of our U.S. Navy. It was never that we couldn't control, but think about it strategically as well. What did Trump do? They freaking hit all their ballistic missile sites, and then what did they do right after that? Getting ready to control the Strait of Hormuz, they sunk every single one of their naval vessels that are, worth anything, right? So they have no navy. They have a bunch of little boats, and they got some water mines. Like, who cares? Like, we now control that, and it's much easier, and we've mitigated the risk. And if they decide that they're not going to stay at the negotiation table and decide to play ball with us, they're screwed, and they should be. Honestly, I think we shouldn't even give them the chance. If I was Trump, that ship has sailed, and they're DUN done.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into well, first of all, Chuck, you've talked probably the least here. You and pretty much everybody. But anyways, Chuck, what are some major points that you want to bring out in all of this whole mess?
I just came from the Iranian border, and there were people I was in Armenia, right on the Iranian border, and it was the only land border left in Iran that's open. And so there were a lot of people coming across that border into Armenia. And I was down there with a translator talking to the Iranian people. And I think that it's hard for Americans to really grasp just how oppressive, just how bad the Iranian regime is to its own people.
Yeah.
Just how evil they are. And the things that they do to instill fear in their own people, to the point where even though the majority of the people in Iran are Muslim, they are renouncing Islam left and right, because they're saying if what the regime does, if that is Islam, I want nothing to do with it. And we talked to people who had converted to Christianity specifically because of that.
Right.
I interviewed a couple of women who were spent 9 months in Evin prison, the worst prison in Tehran, for being Christian. They were arrested because they were Christians, and they were held in solitary confinement. They were forced to watch a friend be executed. They were threatened, and they themselves were told they would be executed. And just because of the international pressure on their case, the IRGC was getting calls literally from the Pope and things like that. They let them go. So I just find it interesting that, Americans are having these high-level discussions about, is it worth it and the people in Iran are telling me, look, the bombs are falling close to my house and it was really scary, but please don't stop. Please see this thing through, because this is they feel like it's their only chance.
All right. Well, let's move on to Al. Let's talk about unless anybody else has anything else before we get into this, ballistics, because one of the biggest things, it is anomalous, it is atypical, and I've said this from the very beginning of what we see with Charlie Kirk. That being said, you start doing some research, it's not as uncommon as, like, the idea that it's impossible that a 30-06 did what it did to Charlie Kirk without you literally shot long range professionally for a really long time, and I know Matt did too, and I have as well. Kind of take the lead on that, Al. What's your thoughts?
Yes. So when I initially heard of the shooting and how it hit in the neck, and I remember watching it, and I was just my initial thoughts. And I'm not really going to go over, the ballistics and trajectory, So what I'm tracking right now, that it was Remington ammunition, like Remington marked ammunition on the 30-06, 30 caliber, and just doing a little research. I haven't found any document showing that, like, what exactly round was found, the unused casings, like what grains were being used or whatever. So I've been kind of basing things off of like generally what people are using for hunting these days. And so I'm guessing like 150 grain Remington is my best guess, unless anyone really disagrees with me on that. And the muzzle velocity, I was assuming at the time, was probably like 2,900 feet per second. And the distance from the shooter to Charlie Kirk was approximately 200 meters, just kind of give everyone, a baseline of what we're working with now. And Tyler Robinson was elevated down to where Charlie was, and approximately 50 feet. So you're probably looking between like a 5 to 7 degree angular deviation. So
about 9.4, because the building that I have this graphed out on our 3D model, so it was about 9.4 degrees.
Okay. Yeah, so it's pretty minimal if you're shooting long range. And have you ever been out to like Todd Hodnett's shooting accuracy first? He'll tell you straight up, like, if you're below 30%, yeah, if you're really below 30%, you don't really need to adjust whatsoever. But I think it should have been probably more point of aim, point of impact. I highly doubt he was going for a headshot, probably his experience level. But the shot is, well, I've heard people say, he was a professional shooter. It's point of aim, point of impact. It was almost, there was almost zero training you had to do for that. And as far as the likeliness of it not going through, so we found, obviously, MLK, he was probably the best example. He was actually shot with a 30-06. I think it was shot through the jaw, went through the neck, and lodged into his chest cavity. So right there's no exit wound on MLK. That's probably the most famous example of that. And just doing research, I actually found out, specifically with 30-06 that, and with hunting ammo, and specifically with, that these softer grains that you're going to find that having no exit wounds is actually a lot more common than you would think, a lot more common than I thought, kind of more after looking into it. So specifically looking at 30-06, we all know that the M1 Garand that we used from World War II into Korea was the 30-06. And I found a battle casualty survey from 1950. I can send the links, or I can even send the documents from it. It was done by several PhDs, and it was found that about 20 to 40% of enemy casualties shot with our M1 Garands, about 20 to 40% actually had no exit wounds when it was coming to our rifle bullets. So that was, pretty significant. And another one of the documents I found through, so it's a book called Gunshot Wounds by a man named Vincent DeMaio, and just going through and a world of information. Great book, actually. And so specifically, obviously everyone remembers when Charlie got shot, he immediately seized up. He was done. And that usually, so if you're using like a soft hit bullet, that I'm guessing that you probably had some of the old hunting ones, that the second that round penetrates the skin whatsoever, and obviously your neck is slightly thicker, like the muscle and stuff, slightly more dense, that bullet is immediately gonna mushroom out. And then the second you hit any kind of bone, and according to the NIH, I found 2 separate NIH documents that the second it hits your skull or it hits the spine, like your upper spine area, that you're looking upwards to like a 70% retention into the human body, no matter what angle, where it hits from any direction with what rifle, unless you're shooting Full Metal Jacket, because obviously that goes, pretty fast through. Sure. And so I found several different, peer-reviewed journals talking about how specifically 30-06, or it doesn't say 30-06, it's saying 30 caliber, that the second it hits your spine or your skull, that you're going to have significantly more retention rates and fragmentation of the bullet. And when you're looking at the report from, I think it was the ATF, found that they only found fragments of what they believe is 30 cal, that kind of directly goes in line with, all these different studies that I found. One of them was like orthopedic research, and then the other one was directly from the NIH, pretty much mirroring the same thing, saying that the second some of these softer tip bullets, especially even if it's a rifle, it's going to be incapacitating. It's going to kill you immediately, because once it hits that hard bone, it's going to it's going to fragment and shrapnel through the rest of your body. And even going through some of those reports, that you're going to see that that he probably had tiny fragments all through his chest cavity, just kind of the way that went. And it's actually a lot more common than not to have, hunting rifles or hunting bullets, retained inside of the body. I found a lot of hunters also saying that when you're shooting these soft tip 30-06 or 30 caliber rounds, that it is going to retain inside of the body, that they were going to be able to recover it. So it's, without going, it's very common. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to add to that. Here's the thing too, people. When people are going out in the backyard, first of all, any of this backyard ballistic BS, if they're shooting a piece of meat or shooting a piece of steel and like, oh, look at this is definitive. All right. They're not a ballistics expert. All right. They're an idiot. All right. You can't, it is so difficult. If you don't understand the difficulty of replicating the shot, especially when we now know that it was Remington. Before that, we didn't even know the brand. We didn't know if it was hand loaded. We still don't know what the grain weight of the bullet is, the projectile type. We don't know the rifle twist. All of these things matter. And so think about this. I can take a 9mm gun, I take a 1/4-inch piece of steel, and I can shoot it and it'll go right through. I can take a 1/4-inch piece of Kevlar and shoot it and it will not go through. And why is that? Because it displaces that energy. It transfers that energy equally. And I want you to think specifically what Al just talked about when it comes to Martin Luther King, and there's another example I'm going to bring up in a second. But it hit him in the spine, just like it did Charlie Kirk. And if you look at the spine and you see, number one, the spine is made to displace energy. And it has so many different attachment points and it flexes. And we saw that with Charlie Kirk. We saw the extreme deformation in his back. And as it went out and came back in, even using the 30 frame per second video, which is, we're losing like 98% of the information between frames. That's how fast this is going. So you have a high speed energetic event. And everybody's guessing here. None of us can definitively say, I think there's enough evidence at this point to intelligently and logically infer that it is a 30-06, but we can't say it was for sure a 30-06. What I think we can do is we can look at ballistics, terminal ballistics, and we can say it's not impossible. It's not even close to impossible. There's plenty of examples. And when you have that soft tip bullet hit the spine, it is going to fragment. Exactly what we saw. We didn't expect that they would be able to do tooling mark identification. I knew that was going to be inconclusive. But what was interesting from that report is they did confirm that it was a 30 caliber bullet. And real quick, I just want to throw this up there because Al brought it up. So these are the different types of Remington ammunition that has ever existed. 30-06. Weights offered from 1